Hello, it's me, Sean, from the Commander's Brew. You know us, we're that show where we talk about unique decks and have a lot of comedy while we do it. This week is our Kaldheim set review. We're going to talk about the cards from a Commander point of view. Can't wait to get to it. Let's go!
Hey everyone, welcome to our big Kaldheim Commander set review. This is technically episode 282. It's Andy, it's Sean. Welcome. We've made it to another set.
We made it. It was a scrap.
It feels
we did it.
Yeah, man. It feels good. We did it. We got here. If you're familiar with these episodes, you know we just kind of get right into it because it's they tend to be a little longer than our traditional eps. And you know we'll sprinkle in our jokes along the way when we come across a card that warrants it, I suppose.
Sure. We're gonna talk about the cards that we feel are relevant in Commander, not all the cards, most of the legendaries, and talk about a couple of reprints. We're gonna go in legendaries first, then we're gonna go colorless, then bicolor, then multicolor, then the Planeswalkers, and then that's a wrap.
Great stuff. Oh yeah, so let's get right into our review, starting off with some of the new stuff that's kind of featured in this new set. Like Sean said, we're not going to go through everything. We're not going to go through every single card. We're not even going to go through every single legendary. There's a couple that are just kind of like whatever. They're
duds.
Not. Yeah, they're the duds, and there are a few duds, so don't worry about that. But we are going to talk quickly about the new mechanics that are being introduced to Magic and to Commander specifically. Starting off with Foretell, which is I think a really great new mechanic for Commander specifically. It's the ability. It's basically, it works a lot like morph, kind of, right? So where we pay an alternate cost, we put it face down, except it doesn't like become a creature or anything. It just kind of sits in exile, and then later we pay a different cost and we can play that spell according to its timing for like a different cost. And usually what it works out to be is like the Foretell cost is always to put it face down is always two generic, and then the spell to turn it face up is usually like 2 less than the regular CMC. Not for everything. And as you can see here, if you're watching along, we've got Saw It Coming, which is the counter spell that has Foretell. It's 1 blue counter target spell, but you can foretell it for 1 and a blue. So we'll pay 2 on 1 turn, and it has to be a following turn that you then pay 1 and a blue to foretell it. So it's an installment plan thing, and as we always talk about when these types of things come up, the installment plans are better than paying it all at once. So this is a great mechanic. I love it.
Yeah, it's not the kind of thing you're going to build a whole Commander deck around. Surely there is certainly one Commander you could do that if you wanted to.
Yeah.
I would just question, like, you're going to be dipping to like lesser powered Foretell cards to enable that. So it'd be more of a fun thing for it. But I think it lives on a ton of what we would call vegetables. Like Saw It Coming's a great counter spell. On its front, it's exactly cancel, but it can become a 2 mana counter anything spell if it's foretold. You know, there's draw spells that do that. There's removal spells that are in the same vein. I think their foretold cost ends up being more efficient than the best of its class anyway. You just got to pay that in installment plan. So I think this is the kind of thing that if you're a little bit of a lower powered meta where you've got a little bit of mana left over turn by turn, you can definitely afford to foretell some cards and have some very powerful effects coming down the pipe.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also like this makes you happy to see a counter spell in your opening hand, which isn't always the case with a specific card. And there's a lot of cards that are like that. You're happy to see these bigger kind of 6 mana and so on cards showing up in your opening hand. It's nice to see them.
It is interesting. Commander, we've evolved to the point where everybody wants their mana rocks to cost 2. Everyone wants their ramp spells to cost 2, which is what the foretell cost is.
Yeah.
So you won't be foretelling with your second land drop most of the time.
Nope.
I feel like most of the time you're going to want to get that mana rock out. And then, I don't know, do I want to play my 4-drop or do I want to foretell something? So it might be hard to find the time to foretell these. I'm not sure.
That's true. I think that is the one like bigger downside is that, sometimes it can be tough to find that foretell cost. And if you're not doing the foretell thing, the cards become less good, obviously.
They're not, yes. If you're not foretelling them, they're not as good as their alternatives.
Our next mechanic is Boast.
Boast.
Yeah.
Yes, Boast is an ability that is attached to attacking creatures. A creature that has Boast says if this creature attacked this turn, you can pay its Boast cost and get an effect. A lot of times it's going to be... It's a very strong limited mechanic. There are very few cards with Boast that belong in a commander deck, simply because we just have the life totals are higher. It's less of an aggressive creature combat format. When we tussle with creatures, they're usually monstrous things with tons of abilities. We're not looking to spend 2 or 3 mana to tap our opponent's creatures. There is certainly a few that are worth running, though, and we'll get to a couple that have caught our attention as we go.
Yeah.
Notably, you don't have to spend it in combat. You
Right.
just have to spend it by the end of turn, which is important for some of these.
Yeah. And for me, I was like, oh, I can just do it in combat. Like you don't have to wait.
You don't have to.
You can just do it right in combat, like even before they declare blockers and stuff. Which
they don't have to survive combat. You can kind of suicide them in.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the two new mechanics that impact Commander. There's 2 returning mechanics that we just want to briefly mention. Again, you'll see them as we go through, but just wanted to say off the top here. First one is Snow. The Snow mechanic is back. Snow lands, Snow permanents, Snow creatures, spells, blah 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 blah, whatever. These are. This is what you call, and I mean like flagging it as such, as like a bit of a parasitic mechanic, meaning that it doesn't mean it's like bad or anything. It just means that it's a mechanic that needs more of itself, right? It needs so therefore it kind of eats up more space in your deck if you're going to try and include this sort of thing. One of the things that comes to mind, recent memory is energy. Energy was sort of that same thing. Like you had stuff that wanted energy and stuff that made energy, and you kind of didn't want anything else if you were going to go pure energy. There's a few great exceptions in the energy list, but Snow actually has way fewer of those exceptions. There's I'll let you read this card in a sec, Sean, the one that you wanted to point out, but basically Snow wants more snow. It wants more snow permanents, more snow lands. Things are going to care about the number of snow things you have. If you have a snow thing, it's going to do something. So you want to maximize your snow in any deck that wants to utilize these things. So to me, they they're kind of it's almost like tribal. It's all going to stick together. It's not really generally good for Commander.
Yeah, if there are commander decks that are just always run every fetch that can get a color that you use, even if you don't use the other color. There are decks that play that way. And then there are decks that say always run snow lens because of extra planar lens, which doubles all your snow forests, let's say, but probably no one else's, unless everyone else is playing the snow game, in which case it goes back on itself. Into the North is another example. It's rampant growth, but it needs a snow. So if you run snow forests, you basically get double of that card, which is useful. So it does this effect on Commander where it just becomes smarter, quote unquote, to use snow basics because you get an edge that way. There's a new card called Graven Lore. 3 blue, snow instant, scry X, where X is the amount of snow spent to cast the spell, then draw 3 cards. So if you were in the market for a 5 mana draw 3 instant, you might as well just convert your whole deck to snow and run Graven Lore, because in that case, now you get to scry 5 and then draw 3 cards, which is a lot of scry. That's very deep. So
yeah.
So I mean,
really makes that card a lot better if you can do that.
It makes the card a lot better, right? And so there's a lot of cards, as Andy said. There's very few cards where you're not just incentivized to make your whole deck snow to take advantage of. But it's one of those things. I kind of hate that it's just I have one card that uses snow, so I'm going to use all my lands are snow lands because I get one edge 1 out of 6 games when it shows up.
And obviously if we're playing casually, we're probably not going to do that sort of stuff. It's different when you're in a competitive format, one of the standards and the moderns and so on. But I'm kind of surprised that they redid this because of how big of an effect that one snow artifact. Oh, I'm pretty good at remembering. I forgot it now. That they made in Modern Horizons, and they had to ban it because it basically made it so that you had to run snow basics. And it's like, isn't a lot of this doing the same thing to a lot of formats now? Anyways, I don't know. But at any rate, the snow stuff is it kind of wants you to stick together. It can have a big effect, like Sean's talking about, if you want to really get those edge cases and really get those small percentage points. But for the most part, I'm probably going to just ignore that they were reprinted and probably not use any of them. Snow Basics, that is, and Snow Lands and stuff like that. Although we'll talk about it more when we get into it. But yeah, we'll when we come across it, we'll get more into it.
And simply put, MDFCs are back. Modal double face cards, cards that have stuff on two sides, that you're allowed to play from your hand with either side as the main side. Prior to this set, we only had lands plus lands or lands plus spells, but now we have more combinations. We have planeswalkers and creatures. We have creatures and artifacts. So keep an eye out for those.
Absolutely. So speaking of MDFCs, our first card in the actual review, we're going to start off like we always do by talking about the relevant legendaries. Because they're printing legendaries at like uncommon now, there's some that are just like, whatever. They're not really worth talking about. You can certainly run them as commanders and they can still have fun decks around them, but they're just maybe most stuff we've mostly seen before. So starting us off here though is an interesting one. Gods are back, MDFCs are back. So here we go. Halvar, God of Battle, is our first card here. It's 2 white for legendary creature, God. Creatures you control that are enchanted or equipped have double strike. At the beginning of each combat, you may attach target aura or equipment attached to a creature you control to target creature you control. So Halvar gets to move some things around. We saw this effect in Commander Legends similarly with, I believe it was... Ardenn, yeah, did something similar. So that's kind of interesting. Notably, these gods in this set, they don't just have native indestructible or even some other way to not die, which has been kind of like a thing that the gods have had in the past. So these are a lot more fair, which I think is better for everyone.
I think it's healthier.
Yeah, it's much better. And then on the flip side of Halvar, we have this Sword of the Realms, 1 and a white, legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has vigilance. Whenever equipped creature dies, return it to its owner's hand, and it equips for 1 and a white. So very notably here, Halvar himself is fine. It's cool. It's a mono white commander that cares about equipment. Fine. Very notably here, though, this is the first time we can actually have an equipment as our commander, basically, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can cast this from the command zone for 1 and a white, and it's the same rules if you wanted to cast it from... if you've already cast it once, same thing. If you wanted to cast it again next time as an artifact, it's going to cost 2 more. All that stuff is the same.
Even if you've done it once as...
Exactly, yes.
Yeah,
it's the card, right? So if we've cast Halvar, the next time we want to cast... and it dies, if we want to cast Sword of the Realms, it's same thing as if we've already cast it once, so it's just going to be the same thing. So they are one and the same card, so you treat them that way. They're not 2 different things. But I think it's exciting, and I think it's really cool. I think it's really neat that we now can have these, and it's not like it's some crazy overpowered thing. It's mono white, for goodness sake. So,
but notably, it's a card advantage.
Yeah.
In the command zone in mono white.
Yeah.
Because if you focus enough of enter the battlefield creatures, you want them to die. Maybe you can sacrifice them with an artifact. You'll return those creatures to your hand. I know recently they printed that little bird that tutors up planes if your opponents have more when it attacks, but you can just put the sword on it, have it die, put it back into play, keep it going.
Yeah, that's very cool. So I like it. A general thing for me is that I always wish there was more colors on legendary creatures. So whenever you print a cool creature like this, I'm always going to wish it had 1 additional color on it, and this is no different. But still, that being said, I actually like Halvar, obviously in a deck that cares about equipment, but it's cool.
Yeah, there's another MDFC, another god that is mono white. So interesting. So many gods in Kaldheim. This is Redain, God of the Worthy, 2 and a white for a god, 2/3 flying vigilance. Pretty cheap for commander. Comes down cheap, but decent stats. Snow lands your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped. Probably not relevant unless everyone metagames and runs snow everything.
You never know.
Right? I think this is the only negative that this would be the only card that would punish me
Yes.
Like say I had a green deck with snow. I don't know if there's many others. Non-creature spells your opponents cast with converted mana cost 4 or greater cost 2 more to cast. Taxes expensive cards. I don't mind that. That's a decent mono white thing. And on the back, you can cast as Valkmira, Protector's Shield. 3 and a white for a legendary artifact. If a source an opponent controls would deal damage to you or a permanent you control, prevent 1 of that damage. Whenever you or another permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless its controller pays 1. Taxes you and all your stuff, no matter what they do to it. That's, again, it's hard to want to build a mono white commander deck, but this is a very cool ability in the 99 of other decks for sure.
Yeah, there's a little bit. It's not like full stacks or anything. I mean, that non-creature spells costing more is. These other 2 abilities are just kind of little protection abilities, which I think are totally fair. Like I don't like stacks abilities at all. So like, but I think the ones on the back, I think on the shield are pretty fair. But I'm with you. I think this is more of a 99 card, if anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we're into the blue mono legendaries. We have Alrund, God of the Cosmos. Now, if you really know your Norse mythology too, like I don't know who those first 2 white gods were supposed to be like aping, but this one I believe is Odin. Alrund, God of the Cosmos. 3 blue, legendary god, a 1/1. Alrund gets +1/+1 for each card in your hand and each foretell card you own in exile. At the beginning of your end step, choose a card type, then reveal the top 2 cards of your library. Put all cards of the chosen type into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. It's very funny. They noted that there's an errata to this, or an oracle like to this card
already.
Yeah, but it's really silly. Put all cards of the chosen type into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. It's changed to be put all cards of the chosen type revealed this way into your hand. Because otherwise it means just put literally every card of the chosen type that's ever existed into your hand from anywhere. They're like, we don't know if we needed to do this, but here's the templating that's different.
This is what you get when you create a set with the double the text of any other Magic set that has ever come before.
A lot of reading in this one. Anyways, so yeah, cool little card advantage thing there. On the flip side, though, it's a legendary bird, Haka, Whispering Raven for 1 and a blue. It's a 2/3 flyer. When Haka deals combat damage to a player, return it to its owner's hand, then scry 2. So this one is one where it looks like you might be wanting to cast like one side and then the other, and then things like that. So because you can get especially if you've already cast your god, your Alrund a couple of times, you can, get him down as Haka and then bring him back up to your hand. So that next time you cast him, he's going to cost less. Anyways, there's a lot of back and forth with that. That being said, this doesn't jump out at me as really that exciting. I mean, the +1/+1 for cards in your hand is kind of a cool mechanic, I guess. But other than that,
it's hard. Because you're going to want to cast Haka early and scry a bunch, which is great, and that sets you up to cast Alrund, but Alrund is not super impactful. Looking at 2 and putting some in your hand is great, but what type are you going to pick? Because most mono blue decks are probably heavy on instants, but you definitely want creatures. So if you don't brew a deck that's mostly instants on purpose, you're not taking advantage of Alrund's front ability there.
Yeah, and this is like another reason why 99 might be the best place for Alrund, because you want to put him in a deck that does, that cares about instants or whatever.
A heavy creature deck.
I mean, you could put this guy in a green blue deck and name lands. That would still be pretty good.
Sure.
Because that way you're getting rid of the lands that are on top of your library, putting them into your hand or whatever. Yeah. So that you're drawing gas after that. Like, I don't know, maybe that's something to do because you're more likely to hit lands, right? So anyways, there's some application for this guy, and I think like for most of the mono colored commanders, they're going to be more exciting in the 99 than anything else.
I think this one's oops, got the wrong tab in there. Well, I think I missed one. Anyway, this is we're going to talking about Cosima.
Oh,
Cosima.
Cosima out.
Cosima. Anyway,
whatever.
This card's pretty cool. Cosima, God of the Voyage, 2 and a blue, legendary god, 2/4 on the front. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may exile Cosima. If you do, It gains whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control. If Cosima is exiled, you may put a voyage counter on Cosima, and if you don't, you return Cosima with X +1/+1 counters on it and draw X cards, where X is the number of voyage counters on it. Weird. So the voyage counters stay.
There's so much writing on this. I think when I was like looking through them, I didn't even read it. I was like,
I know.
It looks like it's probably something.
So Cosima shows up, and then Cosima leaves, and then as you play lands, you're banking card draw on Cosima until you decide to play the land that brings Cosima back. Then you draw a bunch of cards, and Cosima gets pretty big based on the cards you put out there. I think that's a decent... I'm going to try to cast my commander as early as possible and just bank card draw. And then at some point in the game, I'm going to play a land and be like, oh, it's up to 6. I'm going to need a refill. Sure, play a land. Cosima comes back, refill my 6. I think this is an excellent utilitarian commander.
Yeah.
Or we can play on the back as the Omen Keel, 1 in a blue, legendary vehicle 3/3, cruise for 1. Anybody can crew it, as long as they have some power.
I mean,
whenever a vehicle you
can't.
control... A goat cannot crew the Omen Keel, but a sapperling.
A squirrel could, yeah.
A squirrel could drive this boat.
Yeah.
Whenever a vehicle you control deals combat damage to a player, any vehicle, that player exiles that many cards from the top of their library. You may play lands from among those cards for as long as they remained exiled. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if this is like, if there is a mono blue vehicles deck that for some reason gets a ton of different lands. Like, is that going to be a deck? I don't think so. But again,
I like
cool.
Cosima for the front.
Yeah, I like Cosima for the front too. I like the back. I think this is really cool in a like Dimir deck where we're trying to get, sneak things in and hit, because the Omen Kill is a cool thing to hit with. And Cosima just providing some cool card. I love that she goes out on the voyage. She stays out there for a while, and then when she finds the land that brings her back home, that's when, right? Then she comes in and does her thing. It's cool. I like the flavor on that for sure. Next here we have Orvar, the All Form. 3 in a blue, legendary shapeshifter, 3/3, changeling. So this is a recurring mechanic too, but changeling's been around for a long, long time. It just means that this Orvar is all creature types. That's what changeling is. Also, it says, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if it targets one or more other permanents you control, create a token that's a copy of one of those permanents. When a spell or ability an opponent controls causes you to discard this card, so not likely to happen, create a token that's a copy of target permanent. So really, Orvar is going to helm a deck where you are casting instants or sorceries that target your permanents, and then you get to create copies of them. And to me, that sounds like something that's incredibly powerful. Like we're going to be getting more copies of stuff that we're not supposed to have. You know what I mean? I noted that this. I went through a lot of these and saw like already what was like being paired with them, just so we could have an idea of like, where people are wanting to brew these decks. Orvar and Sakashima seems like a very powerful combination if you're like getting to create more. Obviously, not that you can't partner these, but Sakashima can still play in this deck where you like make a bunch of legendary stuff that's copied. So it's a cool ability. I think it can be very powerful for the people who are looking to like do something broken and like combo-y with it. It feels like that can be done. So yeah.
Yeah, I think just on the surface, if you're running Orvar as your commander, you're mono blue, and the main mono blue target my own thing is unblockable that I can think of. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's where you're going to go, and I'm going to want ETB creatures to copy that I make unblockable. And I don't know where the Venn diagram overlaps. I don't know which ETB creatures really want to hit with unblockability. It feels like you're going one or the other.
Could do that. There's also a lot of instance that untap stuff and tap stuff.
Oh, that's true too.
So we can do some of that type of thing. That's where we get kind of a broken thing where we're like,
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I bet you that's where the breaking is.
Yeah. I think there's some stuff there. So it's a cool commander. This one, Mythic. I think this one's already looking like it's people want it, but it seems cool to me. Mono blue.
Next up, we're into black cards. Turgrid, God of Fright. This is the card that caused a lot of buzz when it was first previewed.
Right.
3 black for a legendary god, 4/5 with menace. That's fine. But this is the part that people are like a little bit antsy about in the command zone. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So that's a difficult thing to contend with on the battlefield.
That's powerful.
There's lots of ways to set up a board where I'm going to cast Tegrid into my board and then cause some discards and some sacks and just steal all your stuff.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. There's also something on the back which Tergrid's Lantern.
Yeah.
I think this is a more interesting card. It's a shame that the front, like if you sit down with Tergrid, people are going to be like, well, so we go after this guy first. But I think if you only want to use a Lantern, it's pretty neat. 3 and a black for a legendary artifact. And it taps. Target player loses 3 life unless they sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card. That's one instance of Torment of Hailfire. And you can pay 3 and a black to untap Tergrid's Lantern. So, if you've got 4 mana, you can do this twice in a turn. If you've got 8 mana, you can do this 3 times in a turn. It's very fun to like, I'm going to Lantern everybody all the time. But again, that front card's too scary. I think you're going to get hated out by running it.
Yeah, it's a very powerful effect. Something like we've only seen on an Eldrazi, like It That Betrays is kind of like this ability. Here's the thing that I like the card because it's powerful and it does something that is actually fun for the people who are doing it. But here's my thing, is that causing your opponents to like mass sack their creatures and causing them to discard their hand, it's kind of a bummer to play against a deck that does that, especially the discarding thing. It's like, oh, I don't have any cards in my hand and you're making me sacrifice any creatures I play. Like that can be really tough to face. So if you're building a very tuned Tergrid deck, I hope you have a very tuned meta because those are the only ones that are going to be able to deal with that sort of thing.
It also like what you're describing, who needs Tergrid? Like if you're making your opponent
exactly,
sack
that's
and
already
why do you need to steal it?
It's already super powerful like ability that you're doing there. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well.
All right, so next we have Varagoth, no doubt very powerful Tergrid, just want to say that. Varagoth, Blood Sky Sire, 2 and a black, legendary demon rogue, 2/3, a demon rogue, cool, Death Touch. And this is one where this is our first Boast card that we're seeing here. But again, we don't see too many pop up for the commander cards, but this is definitely one of them. Boast for 1 and a black, so it's a nice cheap Boast ability. Target player searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library and puts that card on top of it. So if you attack, then you can immediately Boast, and you get to tutor for a card and put it on top of your library. So it's a bit of a vampiric tutor without the loss, I guess. And he has Death Touch, so I think you're going to be able to do this once or twice at least. Probably in a game.
Yuriko's bestest pal in the world.
And here's the other thing. This is your commander if you're doing a Varagoth deck. So like, yeah, sure. Like sometimes if you're just wanting to get some key card out for your mono black combo deck, which I'm sure lots of people have, Varagoth is something to consider.
Well, and Yuriko, like just like you can stack your triggers where like you put the Yuriko trigger on the stack, then you Boast before and put your most expensive card on the top so everyone takes that damage when you reveal it. Like it's just like this card will forever have a place in every Yuriko deck from now till the end of Magic.
Because Yuriko needed the help also. Thank you.
Of course. Yuriko is a bottom tier commander.
not powerful and explosive at all.
No, never not.
I not the biggest fan of tutors in the command zone. So, I mean, I'm not looking to make a deck around Varagoth, but I think it's something. It's, something if you need it.
Yeah. I mean, it's very powerful.
Yep.
Let's go to some red cards. There's some cool red ones, I think. This first one is Birgi, God of Storytelling. 2 and a red, I should say. Legendary creature god, 3/3. This is the front side. There's an artifact on the back. So the front side says, whenever you cast a spell, add red. Until the end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. Creatures you control can Boast twice during each of your turns rather than once. Probably not going to come up a ton. There's not a lot of impactful Boast effects in that commander decks generally want. However, adding a mana for every spell you cast, we can construct a pretty neat Storm deck, I suspect. There's a ton of red cantrips for one that will pay us back in mana and cards. So, I mean, if we have the right target, and maybe this is perfect in the 99 of a 2-color Storm deck, I think that's certainly useful. But the back is nothing to shake a stick at. You can also cast this for 5 mana, 4 and a red for Harnfell, Horn of Bounty, legendary artifact. Here's the ability. Discard a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. There's no tap. There's no cost. So, like, if you've got a handful of lands because you've been cantripping and doing stuff, you can discard 4 land cards one at a time and exile 8 cards and have access to those right now. Like, you don't have to do it once per turn, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot here. There's they work together kind of well too, even, right?
Yeah.
Like either you do the horn stuff first, like maybe you take a turn to cast the horn, and then like next turn you, I don't know, you do a bunch of discarding, you're exiling cards and all this, and then somehow you get, maybe you like, I don't know how you'd sacrifice an artifact, but if you can somehow then get Bergie out and then start doing all the stuff with the cards that you like have exiled and cast, like that's pretty exciting. It's some pretty cool stuff going on here. Definitely some creativity around Bergie or Bergie. Anyways, I like Bergie too. I like
hamburgers.
Yeah, my little Bergie. Yeah, but I think this is cool. And again, yeah, the boast, it's probably not going to show up. Next is Magda, Brazen Outlaw, 1 and a red for a 2/1 Dwarf Berserker, legendary. Other dwarves you control get +1/+0. Whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, create a treasure token, very cool, and sacrifice 5 treasures. Search your library for an artifact or dragon card, put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Now here's the thing with Magda, and I love this design. If I were to tell you, Sean, if I were to ask you rather, what legendary creature from all of these do you think the most decks have been brewed around since Kaldheim has been spoiled? Courtesy of our friends over at EDH Rec, keeping track of those numbers. Would you have ever guessed Magda is like by far number 1? No, but I and obviously people love their tribal stuff. Obviously, like dwarves are something that we don't, there's not a ton of them, so it's like whenever there's a new one that comes out that cares about it, people get a little stoked, or maybe their old dwarf deck gets an update. But you don't even need to have dwarves for this to be good, because the sacrifice 5 treasures, we just get an artifact or a dragon card directly onto the battlefield is wild. Like I know that technically costs 5 mana, right? Because the treasures are like mana, so it's not like it's a free ability. But when there's multiple ways to do treasures and to make them quickly and efficiently, like that becomes a very powerful ability. So this mono red dragon card, this mono red artifact card, like there's some cool things you can do with Magda. And then on top of that, she's this kind of silly like dwarf lord also that cares about like vehicles and stuff. It's really neat.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
very fun. I like any card where there's a few ways you could go heavier on dwarves, heavier on artifacts, heavier on dragons.
Yeah.
I like a card that does not have one skeleton.
Exactly. And there's some really cool crossover with dragons and treasure, obviously, and then like artifact stuff. I love it. Yeah, very well done. Very well designed card here.
Very well designed. We got one more red legendary, mono red, I should say. This is Toralf, God of Fury. 2 red, legendary creature god. This is the front side. You get a 5/4 trample for your 4 mana that says whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess non-combat damage, Toralf deals damage equal to the excess to any target other than that permanent. So this just wins you the game with Blasphemous Act. No? You deal 13 to all your opponent's creatures, and certainly most of them are excess, and you just pile that excess to your opponents until they're dead, right? If there's enough opposing creatures. If against a token deck, each 1/1 deals 12 damage anywhere you want after a Blasphemous.
Yes, wow.
So that's a 2-card. I mean, it doesn't win the game with 2 cards because your opponents have to do something, but at any point you can be like, hold that Blasphemous Act, Toralf comes out, and boom, you're dead.
Ooh, boom, you're dead for sure. Yeah.
It seems amazing. I guess what I haven't thought, like, it's because that trigger will go on the stack as Toralf dies. Toralf doesn't need to be around for that trigger to like appear, that it sees everything at once with that kind of board wipe.
Yeah,
I think
Torolf deals the damage.
But and can do that from the graveyard, right? Like even though he has died.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
There's a back to this card if you wanted something different. You could get Torolf's Hammer for 1 and a red, legendary equipment, and it equips for 1 and a red. Equipped creature gets +3/+0 as long as it's legendary. So it doesn't do something amazing for every creature. However, even if they're not legendary, every creature gets 1 and a red, tap, unattach Torolf's Hammer. It deals 3 damage to any target. Return Torolf's Hammer to its owner's hand. It's like a boomerang Thor's Hammer. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I would have preferred something that put it back on Torolf like at the beginning of the next end step or something. You know what I mean? The beginning of the next upkeep or something like that. Because
put it on another creature.
Because Thor throws his hammer and then he catches it. Like he re-equips himself. Maybe that was too powerful for Magic, but definitely this is just all over a flavor win. We've got the hammer, we've got Thor, we've got him dealing lightning bolts sort of of damage with our red mana here. So a lot of cool stuff going on with this card, and it is just kind of like a mono. Like this is why I would have preferred there to be 2 or more colors on this, because this really is just a mono red damage burn deck, which we have lots of commanders for that. So it would have been a little more interesting to me to see him have a different side of him. Whether that were with like it feels like Thor would be a real red-green creature to me, or you know what I mean, like something where there's a lot of power involved. Also, I don't know. Anyways, but I still do think Torolf is interesting, at least. Next we have our first green creature. Speaking of green, Finn the Fangbearer. 1 and a green for the legendary human warrior. Pretty simple here. 1/3 with Death Touch. But whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. So just notable that this is the return of poison. It's not infect. This is more the old poison mechanic where you still do regular damage. So if you have a 1/1 Death Toucher who gets in, they do 1 damage. That's the combat damage, and then they will also get 2 poison counters. So yeah, it's just different than infect, which is like a combination of wither and this poison mechanic. So I don't know if you want to build a mono green Death Toucher deck. I mean, we came pretty close to it last episode or 2 ago with Halana and all those Death Touchers. So like Finn would have definitely been in that deck, even though maybe not definitely, but like it's a consideration in anything where there's a lot of Death Touchers.
I think it is. I think like that's just 5. That's just 5 hits with Death Touch creatures to kill somebody, and it's very tempting to just. I would like to see if there exists a mono green with the cheapest Death Touch creatures, swarm the board with them, and just somehow just be like, and now cast Finn, attack you, and everybody, you're dead.
I mean, like, Hornet Queen is a real best friend to Finn, right? That's like a kill on someone.
All those,
yeah. So I mean, interesting and cool. I like if they bring back poison. I would prefer to be in this mode as opposed to infect, which always feels like it's too much. But anyways,
another green legendary is Toski, Bearer of Secrets. Cute little legendary squirrel. Not a squirrel merfolk though, even though it looks like it
sure does
underwater.
Yeah.
Regular squirrel, 3 and a green, 1/1. This spell can't be countered and indestructible. Toski, Bearer of Secrets, attacks each combat if able. Toski's indestructible, so you don't have to worry about Toski suiciding in. But the big feature is whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Pretty good. Is that the first time we've had that in the command zone? I don't know.
No.
Maybe not.
Maybe in mono green, yeah, but not.
It's good.
Yeah, not otherwise. We've had the blue green. Azuri, right?
Right. The Spy Master.
Yeah. Edric. Thank you.
Edric, Spy Master of
Trest.
Anyway, it's cool. I mean, this is a fun deck. Like Edric is a good deck, and this should be good too.
Yeah, and obviously, if you helm squirrels with the squirrel, you're going to be pretty happy. A lot of those little guys can get in and draw you even more squirrels. This one was this was subject of a major leak that happened that got out there, but now we can talk about it. Of course, everything's Spoil this Vorinclex Monstrous Raider for green for the 6/6 legendary Phyrexian Praetor. So if the poison counters weren't an indication that we were sort of revisiting Phyrexia or the Phyrexian creatures at some point, certainly Vorinclex is.
Wouldn't it have been cool if it went the way Wizards planned? If we got Finn first and we're like, poison. What do you think that means?
Yeah.
But we knew about Vorinclex on like day 4 and we're just like, cool, next.
Great. Who cares?
it really does.
Yeah.
It really is better when there aren't those unauthentic spoilers.
And I gotta wonder, I mean, just to quickly digress, but I gotta wonder what the person who like leaked it with those grainy pictures and everything like they always do, what are they really getting? Because it's always on some weird website. It's not like are they getting ad revenue from that? Like, I guess maybe, but I don't think they are.
You can't get the glory because you can't give your name out with it. So like, what's the value? What is the point?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe
unless they're disgruntled and they hate the company some way and they're just like, F you guys, here's the best I can do.
Or maybe it's simply just attention, which they can't even really cash in again because you can't say who it is.
Right.
Yeah, anyways, Vorinclex Monstrous Raider. This is a big card. Trample, haste, 6/6. If you would put one or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many of those on of those kind of counters on that permanent or player instead. If an opponent would put one or more counters on a permanent or player, they put half that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead, rounded down. So yes, this is doubling season on a commander, and it's not just doubling season. It's got it's a doubling season that's a 6/6 that has trample and haste, and also it halves what your opponents are doing with their counters. Like, I don't know why. Like, I don't get why. Like, it seems like Wizards was always so worried about doubling a season and its effect on Planeswalkers and stuff. So then they were just like, they've been worried about it for years, and then all of a sudden, screw it, let's just put it in the command zone.
Well, I mean, I think that's an interesting point I don't want to brush over. That's why doubling season's crazy, not because it doubles +1/+1 counters. No one is worried about that. Creatures can be monstrous.
We should also just
We're talking about Planeswalkers' loyalty counters.
Yes, exactly.
That's the thing that's what I don't want to brush over.
No.
When a Planeswalker enters, by the rules, you put loyalty counters on it. So Vorinclex and doubling season allows you to put double. So this puts a lot of Planeswalkers into immediate ultimate territory, which is what the doubling season was invented before Planeswalkers. So that was not that they did not see that coming. And anyway, what I just want to make sure we didn't brush over that. It doesn't just make your creatures amazing. It makes you have ultimatable Planeswalkers the turn you put them down.
I should say also that it's not doubling season, because this doesn't double tokens. So that is something that's worth mentioning, because that is honestly one really good thing about doubling season. And is a lot of times there are combos that's the thing that it's using. Anyways,
right. I don't want to. The breaking point is the loyalty counters.
Yeah.
And as you said, Andy, they just put it in the command zone. I guess
it's in the command zone. It's mono
green.
Exactly, it's mono green. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is like automatically broken or anything like that. It may very well be fine. The Praetors are always trouble, because that thing where you stop everyone else from doing stuff, it just puts a target on you. So hopefully you're ready to deal with that. Obviously undeniably powerful, and that being said, it is still exciting to see the Praetors coming back. So,
Yes. Well. Okay, so we're going to do a string of some multicolored legendaries. We have a ton of legendaries. We've already talked about the monocolored ones. And this set, we could have predicted this. There must always be tons of legendaries in standard because Brawl exists. They will never let rotation happen and Brawl go down to like, oh, there's only a couple of monocolored legendaries anymore. So predictably, there's got to be some 3-color legendaries. There's got to be a 5-color legendary, right? Eldraine will rotate, and we will lose Kenrith. So we do have a new 5-color legendary that will stay in standard as that rotates. We'll get to that in a minute. The first one we're going to talk about is Jorn, God of Winter, 2 and a green, legendary snow creature god, 3/3. Whenever Jorn attacks, untap each snow permanent you control, including lands. Or you can cast Cauldron the Rhyme Staff for 1 blue black. This makes this a Sultai deck. Legendary Snow Artifact. Tap. You may play target snow permanent card, lands included, from your graveyard this turn. If you do, it enters the battlefield tapped. That's very good.
Hey,
still not nearly as good as some of the other Sultai disgusting value decks, but it's very good.
Yeah, and like, why not give Sultai another thing?
Why not? Why the heck not?
Like you said, it's not like it's some broken thing or anything like that. Like a lot of the things Sultai has gotten recently, but like, and I know that in this set, in like limited speaking and stuff, like the snow permanents are largely centered around these 3 colors. But like, in Commander, it's just funny to see Sultai get another, theme really that I, for some reason, assumed white would be in, but maybe that's just because it's snow. It doesn't necessarily have to be because it's white, and snow is white, obviously. But anyways, that's funny to me.
Yeah.
And obviously this is going to be the helm of like you said, a snow deck, and there's not much else to talk about there. Again, parasitic. Sure. Esika, God of the Tree. This is an interesting one. 1 green, legendary god, 1/4 with vigilance, and tap, add 1 mana of any color. And also says other legendary creatures you control have vigilance and tap, add 1 mana of any color. All right, so looking for one of those classic legendary tribal decks. On the other side, however, Esika turns into the Prismatic Bridge, the Bifrost, which is a legendary enchantment that costs Wooburg. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature or a planeswalker card. Put that card onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So you call the Bifrost when you get Wooburg, and next turn you just get the next creature or planeswalker right onto your battlefield. Flavor is bang on here, right? I guess Esika is kind of like Heimdall. She calls the Bifrost and gets people.
Sure.
So very
but
cool.
Like, you're never gonna cast Esika herself. Like, it's only going to be the Prismatic Bridge.
Exactly, because I guess unless you had you had some weird way to like sack it once you had all the legendaries tapping for the mana. I don't know. Not going to happen. You're right. We're looking. This is a 5-color get all of our creatures, or a 5-color like Planeswalker deck or whatever, and Prismatic Bridge is going to start getting that stuff for free.
If you see this on your opponent's command zone, I suspect, yourself first. This is not my style of deck. Like it doesn't, like, it just seems too easy. Just run a ton of dual lands. All of your ramp is sorcery or instants, so you don't use creature ramp because I don't want to call a Llanowar elf. And I'm just going to put disgusting huge creatures and planeswalkers that I get for free every turn, unless my opponents have enchantment removal, which is not the easiest.
Certainly not. And like this goes, especially because it's in your command zone, who cares? I'll cast it again.
Who cares?
I'll cast it again.
Like, this card is dirty.
It's dirty, man. It's like you're gonna put what was I gonna say? I was about to say, so like
Ugin.
It's just bonkers what you're gonna be able to do with this.
Avacyn.
I had something else to say. I can't remember what it was now. Anyways, very good card. Prismatic Bridge, Wooburg in the command zone. Feels powerful. Maybe I'll remember what I was going to say later and we'll talk about it, but otherwise, no worries.
While Andy's thinking, I'll move on to Valki, God of Lies. This is a creature on one half, planeswalker on the other half. So the front side is 1 and a black, legendary creature god Valki, 2/1. When Valki enters the battlefield, each opponent reveals their hand, the whole hand. For each opponent, exile the creature card they revealed this way until Valki leaves the battlefield. Then you can pay X, choose a creature card exiled with Valki with converted mana cost X. Valki becomes a copy of that card. I'm not casting it, I'm just becoming it. Or if I have 5 black-red, I can cast this as Tybalt, Cosmic Imposter. The front side's a legendary creature, so this can exist in our command zone. So this is another planeswalker in the command zone. So for 5 red-black, that's a ton of mana, I get a 5 loyalty planeswalker. As Tybalt enters the battlefield, you get an emblem right away. Emblem just for showing up. You may play cards exiled with Tybalt, Cosmic Imposter, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. +2, exile the top card of each player's library, put put a ton in there. And we have that emblem. So even if Tybalt is dealt with, we have access to those cards the rest of the game. -3, exile target artifact or creature. Still have access to it. -8, exile all cards from all graveyards. And add red, red, red.
And also add red, red, red. We're probably doing okay if I ultimated my Tybalt, who cost 7 mana, and somehow got there and did it. Do I really need the extra 3 red mana? Gee whiz.
I want to hear the design talk where they were just like, Tybalt's ultimate, exile all graveyards. So with that emblem, we're going to have access to, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 cards of access. But we just need to tweak this card by a sliver. How do we, like, what ultimate needs anything? Why would you, like, that's like Soren's ultimate, your life total's 10 and add a black.
It's just, yeah, exactly. That's what it feels like, right? I guess they're just giving you the mana to make sure you can do the most stuff, like, so you can basically almost win the game, but holy, very funny.
You already did the most stuff.
You already have at least 7 mana, probably more, right?
Probably.
Not bad.
Oh.
Not bad. I mean, I like both. I mean, both sides of this are very powerful. This is a card that's seeing play in standard and stuff like that already, obviously, for its power level. I do appreciate, though, that usually a card like this, the 7 mana side would be more like the commander side, and the 2 mana side would be a little more like competitively leaning. But in this case, they're both pretty solid. I love Valky as a legendary creature that you can just get some advantage off of. It seems really cool to me. Oh, I remember what I was going to say about the enchantment, the 5-color enchantment. Yeah. That card that gives you extra upkeeps is really good with that.
Oh my goodness, of course.
That's very fun. All right, anyways, that's all I had to say there. But yeah, Valky, very, very strong, and is a Rakdos deck, which is like, no matter, like, obviously that's how these things work, right? Like, even if you're never planning on playing Tybalt, you still get access to red and black, which is cool.
Yes. The commander identity looks at both sides of any given card. This was from the old Avacyn, which was red on the back.
Right on, yeah. And like Elbrus the Binding Blade, which is like a colorless card, but it's black on the back. That's a black card.
Yes.
Next up, we like this card a lot, by the way. Next card is Vega the Watcher. 1 white, blue, 2/2, legendary bird spirit with flying. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, draw a card. This is one of the uncommons, but like this kind of sticks out to me as something I could see building around. In fact, it was what I'm thinking of doing for one of the upcoming episodes. I wanted to know like how we can mess with this, because it's just anywhere other than your hand. It could be, graveyard, exile, whatever,
Flashback.
Right? So there's a lot of options there. It'd be interesting to see how they all work together. Bit of a flavor fail to not have any reference to climbing on the back of the wall and then jumping down on your opponent with your hand claws. Yes, and why is this bird not wearing a mask?
I mean, it has to be late in the battle, I guess.
That's
your
true.
mask got knocked off by your opponent.
And I'm not seeing any claws either, like taped to his wing.
Blonde ponytails.
Yeah, so obviously it's late in the match. Vega, nothing crazy powerful here, but it does seem like this is something that you can work around. And obviously, like, if you've got a flashback deck from the the Rien, is that what it is? That commander deck that came out?
Oh yes.
Where was all the flashback stuff? Yeah, Vega is obviously auto included in there, so cool.
Yeah, totally. Next up in Uncommon Legend is Narfi, Betrayer King. 3 blue black legendary snow creature, zombie wizard, 4/3. Other snow and zombie creatures you control get +1/+1. And for 3 snow, return Narfi Betrayer King from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This is pretty neat. Again, this is another reason you don't have to have any snow. You can just be all zombies, make this your commander, give all of your zombies +1/+1, but just run all snow basics so that you can keep recurring Narfi from the graveyard and just if something happens, let them die, bring them back just as an activated ability. You're not even casting them.
Yeah. This has that dual life. Probably just good in zombie decks, honestly, just as the just as a zombie wizard with that ability and stuff.
Yeah, but then you got to transfer everything to Snowlands.
How far do you want to go with those Snowlands? That's the thing. You can't just include a few. You gotta cover all your basics with it, right?
It just seems pointless not to.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, not pointless, but like why? Like this is where it gets. It's parasitic. It's like there's no if you want to use the ability, and why wouldn't you? Like, just pretend all your basics are snow basics.
Are we at a point now where snow basics are just the like are they going to cost a lot? Like, it feels like even still with all the reprinting of them, like we got a lot of full art ones and stuff. Like how much is it going to cost me to turn my deck, like my 2-color deck that has, 25-ish, 20 plus basic lands? How much is that going to cost me? Like in real world price? Like, I don't know.
Right now, depending on the color, obviously, but they're looking like about 50 cents a piece.
So that's
the blue ones are close to $1 a piece.
That's a even at 50 cents, that's a real cost, man. Like, if we're talking about putting 20, that's $10 just for basic lands in your deck.
You know what? 75 cents. Buy a Sharpie. Write snow on the top of all your basics.
Yeah.
You got snow basics.
And this is something that we're kind of going to talk about when we get down to the land section, though. But I know that there are a lot of people who have been rule zeroing the whole thing of being like, look, just please treat all my basics as snow basics.
Why not?
And I think that's 100% totally fine. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone who would not allow you to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have a Rakdos commander, another Rakdos one. It's Kaldheim Doomscourge. 2 black red for the 4/3 Demon Berserker. When Kaldheim enters the battlefield until your next turn, creatures your opponents control attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. And whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So Kaldheim is kind of this like pseudo goad kind of ability. It's just the once. It basically goads.
It goads the whole table.
Yeah, it goads the table.
Right. Yeah, that's
just
exactly
goad, right?
Goad.
That is goad.
It's
okay.
exactly goad. It's the full. It's that chaos, that red sorcery that goes all creatures on a commander.
So I like that a lot.
That's
Especially
cool.
like it in a red black deck. Like, they can't attack you. You're going to be gaining life because creatures are going to die in combat. Especially the first go around after you play Kaldheim. People are going to try and not have that happen, but it's bound to happen. So I think this commander is a lot of fun. I think this is going to get some people in trouble around the board who are not ready for the goad ability, and I think that's going to be very fun. And I love the mana. I think 4 mana is fair for this too. I like it a lot.
There's an incentive not to destroy Kaldheim because I don't want to put it back in the command zone to let you cast him and have him enter a second time.
Right.
Like, I kind of want to leave him around.
Yeah. In fact, we would like to probably recur this guy a few times or bounce him or something. If we can do that in these colors, that would be great.
Black decks could recur creatures.
That's right. Yeah. It's tough to do, but we can figure it out. Also, but I got to say, also, Kaldheim, a fine included in a 99 deck where it is something like a chainer, a thing where we're getting those ETB abilities, over and over again. So I think I like this commander a lot. Might be one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's true. This one's pretty cool too. This is the Gruul uncommon Svella Ice Shaper. 1 red green, legendary snow creature, troll warrior, 2/4. Svella has 2 abilities. The first one is 3 colorless tap. Create a colorless snow artifact token named Icy Manolith with tap. Add 1 mana of any color. You make a snow manolith. Cool. 6 red green tap. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may cast a spell from among them without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. 8 mana is a ton.
Yeah.
But, we can get there because we're making those mana lists, and green Gruul decks ramp like crazy anyway. So getting to 8 is not that hard for a commander deck. We will certainly be putting busted expensive cards that cost 8 or more to take advantage of this ability. The key thing is we can do this at instant speed, and as the rules of Magic are, we're allowed to cast creatures when we activate this, even if it's not in our main phase. So it really it puts your opponents on a tough position to be like, I don't know what to do, because if I come at you, I don't know what's going to come out.
This reminds me a lot of Mael, the Naya commander.
Yes.
But Svella has its own ability to create your mana ramp. Like, one of the problems with Mael is that you need to get to 6 and you want to get there as fast as possible. And, if you don't hit your ramp, you can get a little stuck sometimes. So the idea that Svella comes out and can make these rocks is really cool. 8 is a lot is a lot more than 6, as we all know. But yeah, I mean, you build a deck where you're trying to take advantage of that, and you can. Yeah. The one thing is also you'll never whiff with Svella. I mean, you might get a very bad mana disadvantage from paying 8 and getting like a 2-drop or 3-drop or something. But, you know, that being said, I kind of like this. I mean, as considering it's like an uncommon in the set, this is kind of cool. Plus, like, I don't think we have anything where the thing makes other mana rocks, right? Like, I don't recall that ability ever existing. There's stuff that makes like other Llanowar elves and stuff like that, but this seems like the first thing that's making manoliths. It's really cool. All right. Well, is that... No, that is not... That's not all of our legendaries, is it?
No,
not even close.
No.
For some reason, I thought this next one just like wasn't something else.
Legendary?
Yeah, I don't know why. I thought this was a different card just by the name. Agar the Freezing Flame, 1 blue-red for the 3/3 legendary giant wizard. Whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess damage, again, we're seeing that excess damage thing. If a giant wizard or spell you control dealt the damage to it, this turn, draw a card. So just a cool little, you can build this, obviously with the tribal thing, you can also do it from this just like general... spell slinging type of thing where we can just be dealing damage and drawing lots of cards. Seems pretty good to me.
Yeah, it doesn't say non-combat damage, which is different than Torolf. So this is, if your giant gets into combat with anything, giants are usually bigger than the thing they're up against, so this will work.
Nice.
We've got a Golgari. I almost forgot that guild name. A Golgari commander, Sarulf, Realm Eater, 1 black-green, legendary creature, wolf, 3/3. Whenever a permanent opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, so not just dies, because dies is only creatures, this is also destroyed artifacts and enchantments, put a +1/+1 counter on Sarulf, Realm Eater. Cool. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Sarulf has 1 or more +1/+1 counters on it, you may remove all of them. If you do, exile each other non-land permanent with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of counters removed this way. Wow. That's like, people hate when Massacre Girl is in the command zone. They're like, people are a little bit salty with Nevinral in the command zone now. Just board wipes in the command zone. This is like super board wipe in the command zone. Like, it takes a little while to build it up, but it probably doesn't take a lot of things dying. Of course, this deck will make things die and put a ton of counters on Sarulf. So if I get to my upkeep, I can exile almost everything but Sarulf. Start it again from the future.
Yeah, the fact that you, like, at least Nevinral or whatever, he has to die, right? Or you have to sacrifice him or something, I think?
Yeah.
Sarulf, you don't even have to do that. You just get to keep Sarulf out there doing its thing, right? Like, that seems powerful to me. Very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little slower.
It's slower,
so like you
for sure.
can't just destroy everything right away, which might make it a little bit more fair, but it's a very menacing ability for sure.
Yeah, and like I believe we said when we talked about Nevinral, I just don't love a board wipe in a command zone. That's just my own personal preference. I think board wipes make the game go longer. They're necessary still. You still play, you still want to play a few, but like to have one in the command zone, I would. It's a bit of a groan to be like, okay, this person's going to keep wiping the board over and over again. It's like, okay, well, we're in here for a longer game then, which can be fun sometimes. But sometimes, maybe we want to fit 2 games in tonight. You know what I mean? Because I got 2 commanders I want to play. Anyways, next we have Call the Forge Master, not Call the Forge Master, but Call. His name is Call. Call the Forge Master. Red, white, dwarf warrior, 2/2. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, if it was enchanted or equipped, if it was enchanted or equipped, return it to its owner's hand. And creature tokens you control that are enchanted or equipped get +1/+1. I don't understand this card. Why do we care about non-token creatures, and then all of a sudden we make it's all caring about creature tokens? So non-token creatures die, and we can return them. But then there's this other thing where it's like, oh yeah, by the way, also equip your creature tokens. I guess we can go both sides of it. Although to me, the creature tokens thing is like not good enough. +1/+1 if it's equipped or enchanted. Okay, fine. I like the top ability way better.
Screen.
Yeah.
I think there's numerous artifacts and there's numerous ways we can get to equip without paying mana. And if we do that on a 0 mana non-token creature like an Ornithopter or something,
Rogrock.
we could Rogrock.
Good guy to have with Rogrock.
Sure. So we can create an infinite loop quite easily with Cole. So having anything else watching for those entries, I almost think that +1/+1 tokens is like, that's not the thing. Like the first thing is this infinite loop portion where like I'm going to return some zeros to my hand, drop them again for free, equip them for free via another ability I've put into my deck, and boom.
Yeah, interesting. Like with an Ornithopter and like a... Does like an Ornithopter and a... No, it's an O2. What's the one that's a 1/1 but it's free? Isn't there a 1/1? Yeah, I know. I was about to,
I mean, there's a few of them, right?
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, the Rogrock
Memnite?
also.
Yeah, but Rogrock gets buffed when he's equipped. Memnite, right? That's what it is. It's a 1/1.
I'm just talking about 0 mana creatures that aren't tokens.
Me too.
I don't even care if they get buffed or not.
Okay, so check this out. A Memnite, which is a 1/1 for free.
Uh-huh.
If you equip it with Skull Clamp, this is why I talked about getting buffed. If you put Skull Clamp on it, it dies, but it goes back to your hand. Then you can pay 0. I guess you still have to pay for the equip. But yeah, if you can make
That's why tokens get +1/+1, so we can't Skull Clamp our tokens infinitely.
But you can't, because tokens wouldn't return to your hand anyways.
I know, but this puts a hold on your Skull Clamp. They're saying like you don't get to do Skull Clamp shenanigans unless it's Memnite. Weird,
but that's again creatures. Regular creatures don't get the buff,
right?
So it's just
you have to kill actual cards to get Skull Clamp to turn into cards. You can't just kill infinite tokens.
It's weird that they would be like, we're gonna make a commander that does not work with Skull Clamp.
Yeah,
but it also does really well if you have a 0 mana 1/1. Because that's what.
But if you're putting those zeros in, you're not like Skull Clamp isn't the reason. It's to just infinitely loop them for something. I guess you would include Skull Clamp just to get there with more cards.
Seems like it's a powerful thing to be able to just keep drawing 2 cards for 1 mana over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's just kind of how Skull Clamp works if you have a bunch of tokens. Anyways, Call the Forge Master. Bit strange, but yeah, this seems like there's some stuff you can do there. What's next?
Next up, Koma Cosmos Serpent. This card is unbelievable. It's Simic. 3 green, blue. Legendary creature, Serpent. So this is a hefty 7 mana cost. You're probably not going to cast this commander a couple of times, and your opponents will get to prepare for its arrival accordingly. Yeah. You get a 6/6. This spell can't be countered, so they can't prepare for it with a counter spell. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 3/3 blue serpent creature token named Koma's Call. Every upkeep, you get a 3/3 serpent. This is like Tendershoot Dryad, but a million times better. Then you get to sacrifice another serpent. Choose one. Tap target permanent. Its activated abilities can't be activated this turn. Or Koma gains indestructible until end of turn. So you have a brief window before the next upkeep to destroy Koma before serpents appear to get that destruction. You can always exile Koma, and as the Koma deck, I'm probably going to run some changelings or other serpents that hit the battlefield before Koma does to get that pre-protection from it. Get hexproof on Koma, and there's very little you can do to stop them.
Yeah, Koma seems quite powerful.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that line with the changelings. That seems good. Tapping target permanent and having its activated abilities can't be activated. The only problem with that, I guess, is that they can do it in response.
Yeah, I assume we're gonna do things like in people's upkeeps where they have the worst. Like they can do it, but they don't get to choose an optimal time for it, and like they have to do it in their upkeep and spend mana presumably on it before they've drawn their cards. So they're like, I don't even know if this is my best option. Or maybe you just want to kill a few blockers before your team gets in. Just tap a few things.
It's funny because I was thinking when you were reading this that like you're like it's a brief window before you can do anything, and I was like, yeah, well, one turn around the table, yeah, that's a brief window, all right. It's like, oh no, it's just the next upkeep. So
yes,
it's a very brief window. 7 mana is a lot, but I mean they're probably going to be ready with that other serpent, like you said.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce this? Morit?
Maurice. The T's sound like S's.
I was not expecting you to say that. Maurice.
Truly Morit.
Morit.
But I would like to call this card Maurice.
I believe this is the first French Canadian legendary creature we have. Morit of the Frost. I mean everything fits so far being French Canadian. Morit of the Frost. 2 green, blue, 5 mana, 0/0 legendary snow creature shapeshifter, which means that it's likely to have, yes it does, have changeling. So this is every creature type.
Is this the first changeling in the command zone?
No, there's a mono blue one. That's the old thing. It's like this card is every creature type.
So then
Andrew
we have...
Mudsta has a deck he plays a lot. That has that. I can't remember the name of it now. It's a weird name.
So we already have every kind of creature tribal then.
Yes, we do.
We always get excited when we're like, oh, finally, dogs tribal. It's like, no, we have a shapeshifter, so we have everything tribal already.
And we also have that 5-color one from, I think it's Modern Horizons. Remember the weird, it's like colorless to cast it, but it has 5. Yes. We have that one too. Anyways, what does Morit do? Besides eat poutine and visit Quebec City. You may have Morit of Le Frostu enter the battlefield as a copy of a permanent you control, except it's legendary and snow in addition to its other types. And if it's a creature, it enters with deux additional +1/+1 counter on it, and it has changeling. So yeah, I mean, I kind of like this card actually. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just a utility commander where you're just like, I'm just gonna at some point copy some cool stuff I've already made.
Yeah, and this is one where we see it has the snow like type, but it does not rely on anything snow related. So this is at least one thing where this would be an enabler to a snow deck. Obviously, if you like need a snow permanent, it can be your commander, but absolutely not necessary. This is just a nice changeling that is basically a clone, sort of, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Last multicolor legend from the packs. There's a couple from commander decks we'll get to in a second, but this is the Selesnya Maya Bretagard. Depends how the J's are pronounced.
Yeah.
Bretagard Protector. 2 green, white, legendary human warrior, 2/3. Other creatures you control get +1/+1, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 white human warrior creature token. This card is fine, but I did a little search. It is the first Selesnya legendary that has landfall make a creature token.
Notable. Interesting.
Yeah. We've got that in a few other color combinations, certainly in mono green, but as a specifically Selesnya, first time.
So, and technically that kind of makes 2/2 human warriors because automatically they're getting the buff.
They're pumped.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
So that is pretty good. That's a nice little landfall ability on a commander. I like that. Now, quickly looking at the 2 new legendaries from the commander decks, we have Raynar, the Ever Watchful, 2 white, blue, 2/3 legendary spirit warrior. Flying and Vigilance. The first card you foretell each turn costs 0 to foretell. And whenever you exile one or more cards from your hand and or permanents from the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So much like we talked about earlier, this card kind of has these 2 routes to go. We could lean heavily on the foretell, and there are 1 or 2. I feel like there's definitely one other weird little thing where we exile cards from our hand. There's definitely suspend, right? That technically exiles cards from your hand.
Yeah.
I feel like there's one other weird one too that's from like a weird old set. Anyways, so you might be able to utilize some of those cards, but it also counts from the battlefield too. So if we just want to be like bouncing and, Brago type stuff, Brago is actually included in this deck as a reprint. that can be really powerful. Just creating a bunch of 1/1s, Ghostway, Ghostway a bunch of your creatures away, all they turn into 1/1s, and then we just get them all back again. So I actually really like Raynar. You said at the beginning you're probably not going to build the deck around Foretell, and while I agree it's not this deck wouldn't just be Foretell cards, he does give you quite a strong incentive to include, a lot of them if you can.
It's true. I guess the point I was trying to make is just there aren't a lot of cards with Foretell that I would just want in a commander deck that aren't just variations of like, oh, it's another draw spell. It's like, sure.
Yes.
You're going to put it in, but like it doesn't give you access to any cool new strategies or anything.
And I don't think you would want to be running, especially those types of cards, unless you were getting some crazy discount on them like Raynar offers you. So outside of him as a deck, I feel like you're probably not really doing that a lot. But that being said, the Foretell mechanic is just a good one if you get it on a spell that you care about. So neat.
Excuse me. The other inhaled some saliva down the wrong tube there.
Oh, cool. Good to know.
So we got a Golgari legendary elf tribal commander. Lathril Blade of the Elves. I'll get through this. You know what? I think you need to read this one. I'm going to mute myself for a second.
Okay. Lathril Blade of the Elves is 2 black greed for the legendary Elf Noble. It's a 2/3 with Menace. When Lathril deals combat damage to a player, Sean is coughing so hard right now. You guys can see him if you're watching. It's funny. Deals combat damage to a player. Create that many 1/1 Elf Warrior creature tokens. And then we can tap her and tap 10 untapped elves you control. So that's 11 creatures in total you have to tap. Each opponent loses 10 life and you gain 10 life. So very powerful ability there, though. And I will say this: I've recently played against a black-green elves deck in Commander that was kind of just Ellie of the Veil said she just like threw one together just from kind of like cards she had around and stuff like that. And that's a powerful deck just on the stuff that elves do, let alone being specifically tuned hard for like a card like Lathril. And like leaning into the ability of making all the tokens on top of that. Like I think that we're going to see some elves decks come out of this, and considering a bunch were printed in Commander Legends too. Like I think we got a bunch of new and exciting elves and like different ways we can go with an elf deck now, which is nice. It's always nice when we can get different angles on tribal stuff.
It's nice. Elves are one of those, like, there's been elf decks for a long time.
Yeah.
Like that use very old elf cards.
Yeah, exactly.
Different borders and stuff. It's nice to see them making a comeback and just getting a modern take. I hope we get a new, that feels like Merfolk to me. There's been like old standard kind of Merfolk average decks. I want to see Merfolks get a nice boost.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, that does it for our legendaries. Now, that's a big chunk of the show. This is not just the halfway mark or anything like that, because, we're Commander Show. We could talk about all the commanders more than anything else, and there's a lot of them for this. My Google Home does not have any information about that, but that's fine. So we had a lot to talk about those. So now we're going to just start running through the notable sort of just regular cards in the set. Then we're going to quickly tell you about the notable reprints. We're not going to really get into talking about them a lot from the Commander decks, and then that's going to be it. Yeah. So now is a good time to go get a drink of water or use the bathroom if you're just listening to this all the way through, because that's what we're going to do right now. So we will be back after this short break.
We're just going to take a second to handle a little bit of business. And the main point is, thanks for watching. If you want to see more of our comedic takes and offbeat decks, consider subscribing to our channel and hitting that bell to make sure you don't miss anything. And if you're loving our stuff and want to support further, the best way is to head over to patreon.com/commandersbrew. Find out how our generous patrons keep our show growing and how you can get in on the brewing action too through our Discord. Or, if you'd rather, just hang out and play some games with like-minded Commander players. Now, let's get back to those news.
All right, we are back, and like I mentioned, we will now be diving into the just like the non-legendary cards of the set. So let's begin with the lands, and actually, kind of in a refreshing change of pace, there's actually quite a few lands to mention this time around. Sean, why don't you start us off here?
Sure, they've finished the cycle of pathways. MDFCs that are a color on the front and a color on the back. There were 4 missing ones. For example, the Rakdos, Blight Step Pathway, black on the back, or Seer Step Pathway, red on the front. I forget which is front and which is back, but it doesn't matter.
You were correct.
Okay.
These are good. If you have the money to buy them, they are good, and they are good in 2 and even 3 color decks. If you don't care, hey, that's cool as well. But they are good. I like them. Next. Oh, wait, this isn't on the thing. What is this? Oh, is this just a snow duel? Yeah, okay.
Snow duels.
I was like, this isn't in here. Okay, so the snow duels are here. These are interesting because they are enters the battlefield tapped lands that are just dual lands, a la Guild Gates. Ice Tunnel is the Dimir one, blue, black, except it's a snow land, and except that it is also both basic land types, which is nice because these are now fetchable with, our fetch lands, or, us budget players. We love the slow fetches. Now this makes them extra slow because they have to come into play tapped. But it is nice, and it's also nice for things that care about islands and swamps and so on and so forth. So, I like these a lot. I heard on our command sphere, Dan and Rachel were talking, and they mentioned how some people are rule zeroing these cards to just be straight up regular duels. Apparently, that's a thing that people are doing.
Duels?
Like OG duels. It's like, okay, I can't afford dual lands, but I'll tell you what, these have the 2 types on them. So is it cool if I just use these snow lands because they're so like noticeably different, even because of their their border and everything, that these are OG duels. And I same thing as I said before, I think that's totally fine, man, because I'm not dropping $500 to buy a dual land. And especially now that we're playing on Spell Table a lot, like we're playing against, our meta is larger if you're playing on Spell Table a lot, and you're getting people who are who were playing Magic back in the day, and they have all those cards. And if you're like me and you started anywhere in the last 10 years, you likely don't have access to that. So I think it's 100% great that people are doing this, and I encourage it and I support it, and it sounds great to me.
Yeah, all we want to do is make sure we're all playing similarly powered decks. And if you've got OG duels, I own Planes and a Sharpie, so I can also play with OG duels if it makes the game better.
Yeah.
Right?
And
go nuts.
I guess I should just clarify a tiny bit. They're playing it as though the enters the battlefield tapped part just isn't on the card. So
I assumed, because
that's all. We're not saying this is scrub
anything,
land or whatever, right? Like this is Ice Tunnel. It's still a snow land. It's still an island and a swamp. It just doesn't have to come in tapped. So do it, man.
Yeah,
exactly. More people playing is more fun. So let's, I'm down with it.
Yeah. So let's, oops, I missed a couple here that didn't get onto the tabs here.
Okay. This first one is very cool.
Right.
First one is the World Tree. Now this, okay. Yeah. First of all, confused as to why this isn't legendary, but there are some reasons apparently. Anyways, but the World Tree is a land. It says enters tapped. It taps for green. It says as long as you control 6 or more lands you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. So that's really crazy.
Very cool.
But then this does have a Wooburg ID, which is kind of means that you can only put this in 5-color decks. So that's kind of a bummer. But so it does have that. It does have the ability of white, white, blue, blue, black, black, red, red, green, green, which we're just going to call
Progenitus,
Wooburg, or Progenitus. Tap. So you pay all that. You tap. You sacrifice the World Tree. You search your library for any number of God cards, put them onto the battlefield, then search your library. So you really only would run the World Tree for that ability in a 5-color God deck, I guess. So.
That's probably the Rainbow Bridge deck too, right?
But
so you're getting them.
But truly, though, I think the best thing about this card is that if you're running a 5-color deck, this fixes your mana at six lands.
Yeah,
which is incredible. That's very good.
And even if you don't have the gods, I agree.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't need the gods, obviously. But that's cool. I like that card a lot.
I do too. There's a colorless one that we want to talk about. Tyrite Sanctum. It's a land. It taps for colorless. It comes to play untapped. but it is colorless, and it has 2 abilities. I guess 3 if you count making mana. So the other 2 are 2 tap, target legendary creature becomes a god in addition to its other types. Put a +1/+1 counter on it. That alone, I mean, unless you have a Planeswalker commander because of the specialty ones, you can just put +1/+1 counters on your commander that you at least have that legendary and probably more. That's already very good. Also, 4 tap, sacrifice Tyrite Sanctum, put an indestructible counter on target god. Obviously, you've turned your commander into a god if they're not already. Now it's indestructible if you want to sacrifice this land. Indestructibility doesn't go quite as far in Commander because we run a lot of exile spells because Indestructible exists. So in a way, this is just like, well, it's because of cards like Tyrite Sanctum that I'm trying to find exile effects over destroy effects. So it won't always do what you expect it to, but just the +1/+1 counters I think is an excellent ability to have on a land.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is just bonus. If you can afford this from your, like, if you can take the break on color from your mana base, I think this is just a fine thing to work with any commander that would want any kind of protection or any kind of boost. It's just, yeah, pretty cool. Again, like, you know, it's on a land, so it's kind of free if you can spare the mana. There's like 10 different lands in this set that are, I think they're all at uncommon.
Yes.
Yeah, and they all have an activated ability of 2 colors. Not all of them are great for Commander. Most of them are like decent in Commander. Like they're fine. Again, same thing. If you can afford to include them because of the color restriction, I think they're fine. They all kind of look like this. We're just gonna read just like 3 of them. First one is Axguard Armory. So they all work like this. They enter the battlefield tapped, and then they tap for like their main. I'm gonna call it their main color. So Axguard Armory is the white one. It taps for white. And then the ability is 1 red, white, tap, sacrifice Axguard Armory, search your library for an aura card and or an equipment card, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. This is a strong ability in a deck that wants equipments and auras. You get both. That is really good. It's on a land. And this land is not a colorless land. Like, this is... You know, this is basically a plains, right? Like this taps for white. Yeah, it enters tap. This is like MDFC level type thing here, where this kind of has this thing where it's a land, but it's also this spell, this tutor spell. And in a way, it's also better than the MDFCs because it's always a land and it's always this spell. It's always both, actually. So in some ways, it can be better, right? So it's interesting. It's interesting.
Like the ones we're going to highlight are the ones that are a little bit above and beyond, that are a little bit special in the sense that we don't already have those spell lands, or they're not super common abilities. Like I know the blue-white one draws you a couple cards, but like in a blue-white deck, that is in abundance, and there is already at least 1 blue card off the top, blue land that draws you a couple cards if you want to sacrifice it. So like a lot of them are not unique, especially unique, or like, but this Boros one, first tutor 2 things, very neat. This next one is the Gruul one. Enters tapped, main color's red, taps for red. But you can pay 3 red, green, tap, sacrifice this, destroy target land, and create a 4/4 green troll warrior creature token with trample. I don't think the token is the exciting part. I think it's important to have a couple of land destruction spells, and there aren't that many. There's a few lands that destroy lands, but I'll take another in a Gruul deck.
Yeah, like there's another one. There's another red one but you have to pay like it's the same thing as this, but you pay 5 to just blow up the land, and it's like, well, I'll just pay 6 and get a 4/4 creature, which is like, that's fine. That's pretty good. We're paying 6 mana for a 4/4 and killing their land. That's great, because they don't get to just go look for another land. That's the other thing. That's always the ability on these lands, is they get to replace it with a basic, but they don't get to do that with this. So that's noticeable or notable. The last one we're going to read is Port of Carfell. It's the blue-black one. It's the main color is blue, so it taps for blue. Enters tapped. 3 blue, black, tap, sack the port. Mill 4 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So this is a little reanimation spell right on top of it. It's a little bit of mill. This is exactly what these type. Obviously, if you're looking to reanimate your own stuff, this is exactly the type of land you want in that deck. Not much to say about the ability itself, but I love seeing this on lands. I love it.
I think there is something worth saying about it, is that we rarely get this ability at instant speed, putting a creature from the graveyard to the battlefield. A lot of these dual lands do come with a restriction of not being able to, you have to do it at sorcery speed, only when you could cast a sorcery. This one does not. So this is another, there aren't many ways to, let's say if an Eldrazi hits your graveyard,
that's true.
Its trigger goes on the stack and it will get shuffled back into your library. But the Port of Carfel is a way to bring that back.
That's true.
If this was sorcery speed only, I don't think it would be worth mentioning, because this ability is so redundant in these colors. I don't think, like,
it's,
I know.
I think it's worth noting that it's on a land, because you also don't see this ability on lands very often. Yes, we have spells that do this.
Yeah,
but we
right to the
do not
battlefield
have very
is
many
not
lands.
often.
Yeah, and that's why we didn't mention it because it's sorcery speed and it's just kind of whatever. But the Simic one is like makes a clone, so it's like, again, million spells that make clones. Obviously, it's Simic at sorcery speed, but we don't get them on land, so it's kind of, that's why I think. Take a look at this cycle for yourself. There's certainly a bunch that, like the red-blue one and the red-black one, are just like definitely more limited / constructed aimed. But there's a couple that are clearly aimed at commander, and I think that they're all includable in those types of decks. So very, very cool stuff. Take a look at that. Wizards, thanks honestly for making some interesting and cool lands that commander players might care about. I love it.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the colorless cards. Only a few here.
Sure. Starting with Cosmos Elixir, 4 generic for an artifact. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life total. Otherwise, you gain 2 life. I think we can't assume we will be above our starting life total most of the game. Even in a life gain deck, your opponents usually know you're a life gain deck, so they will prevent you from doing that. Where I think this card is most useful is when you want repeated life gain triggers. If that's what your deck's about, this card's great for that. And there is an outside chance it draws you a card per turn. But I think if that's your main focus, I wouldn't rely on this. There's better ways to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I actually don't even think that gaining 2 life at the upkeep is that good. I've had decks that care about life gain, and I've also had ones that care about the number of instances. And whenever there's a card that just does it once at the upkeep, it's kind of not enough. So, but
fair enough.
But I do think the upside is the card draw possibly happening. So, anyways, next we have is Maskwood Nexus. A lot of people talk about this one. 4 mana for an artifact, colorless. Creatures you control are every creature type. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. And then you can pay 3 to tap it and create a 2/2 blue shapeshifter creature token with Changeling. So this is notably different from cards like Conspiracy and Xenograft and things like that. It does a similar thing in that it makes you a tribe, makes all of your creatures in your deck a tribe no matter what they are, except that this makes them all of them. So you can run crazy stuff like caring about specific little creature types, and it all affects every creature in your deck. Very exciting, I think. The fans of tribal Magic cards are going to love this card. I think there's no question about it.
And Wizards, thanks for giving us something so where we don't have to run yet another blue or black deck assist with blue, so we can get those friggin' cards. Like finally we could do this in white if we want.
Yes, yeah.
If we thank you, Wizards, thanks.
This is a pure fun card, so exactly. Thank you for making it accessible to all the weird creature types. It makes sense though too, right?
Yeah.
It's every creature type, so let's talk about every color then.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, last one here.
Pyre of Heroes. 2 generic for an artifact, 2 tap, sack a creature. Search your library for a creature card that shares a creature type with the sacrificed creature and has converted mana cost equal to 1 plus that creature's converted mana cost. Put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle only when you could cast a sorcery. When I first read this card, it feels like Birthing Pod, but they just took it out of green. I think that's a very smart move to make this effect in any color, but do not neglect to notice that it has to be the same creature type. So unfortunately, this only really works in tribal decks. I think it's going to be fine there because tribal decks will often have great pod chains hidden in there. I'm sure you're going to want to find a cool 3-drop from a 2-drop you don't need anymore. But I am disappointed that it's only, as someone who does not love tribal decks, I'm disappointed.
Yeah. How much is this card right now? I can't scroll down to see it, but you can.
It is $2.
Okay, so there's a lot of other tribal cards that were printed in some commander sets and popped up in some sets like Modern Horizons and things like that, where they're colorless. They care about tribes and they give you like some sort of advantage, whether a lot of times it's like card advantage off the top of your deck and so on. Similar abilities is what we're seeing here with Pyre of Heroes, and those cards are not $2. They are more than $2, and they quickly get higher than $2. Leaning on our side budget knowledge, I couldn't not include Pyre of Heroes because everything Sean said is true. But if you got tribal decks, you're going to put this card in there a lot of the times. And if you have a tribal deck like Zombie Tribal or anything like that actually wants things to die, even more so, you're going to want to put Pyre of Heroes. So like a lot of green, blue, black decks, a lot of Sultai based stuff is going to want that. I think
so. Most of the heroes in the Pyre are zombies.
Yeah, exactly. They're dead. So yeah, I think this card is going to raise in price. It's not like as ubiquitous as like an equipment that gets something off the top, obviously, but I think we're going to see this in action, and we're going to want this more as far as tribal decks go. Not other decks. I totally agree. You're not going to really want them. Okay, that's everything for the colorless. They're printing more artifacts in actual colors nowadays. So one of the reasons we're not seeing like a ton of equipment show up here. It's actually a pretty equipment heavy set. Okay, so we're moving on to white, and the first card in white we're going to talk about is Doomscar. It's
a banger.
Yeah, it's three white. Doomscar. Doomscar does. It sounds like the name of like a rave or like a concert or something.
And it looks like there's a rave going on.
Yeah, right. And you're just like, it's a banger, man. Yeah, man. I was at Doomscar. Yo, you're at.
Just wait for the drop.
Were you at Doomscar 08? Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. That's where I got this tattoo.
Yeah. So I got this tattoo of the Bifrost running up full the length of my leg.
It was supposed to be Narfi, but it looks like the KFC man.
It looks like Colonel Sanders. It's Colonel Narfi. Doomscar's 3 white for his sorcery where you destroy all creatures, but notably it has Foretell for 1 white. So we can pay 2, put this face down on one of our turns, and then any of the following turns after that, we can pay 1 white for a board wipe. I mean, yeah, no brainer. Basically, like the only thing.
So there's tons of 5 mana board wipes out there, right? In white. Yeah. Where does this rank for you in your like is this near the top, at the top?
Well, I'm not like super concerned about being super efficient with mana in Commander. I mean, obviously, the more efficient is, the better it is. But there's a lot of like, depending on the deck. Would I like something like Fumigate where I gain a bunch of life? Do I want to be doing something where I destroy all my end hostilities, or I get to destroy their equipment as well? But maybe overall this is near the top just because you can get it for 1 white. I mean, because at its base,
I think
if you don't care about that other
Nova
stuff,
man.
Cleansing Nova, yes. Oh yeah, Cleansing Nova is incredible, right? That's the one where you get to choose.
That's my number 1 white 5 mana Wrath for now, but this one I think I like where you're going. I don't know if the efficiency is my favorite bonus.
Here's why the efficiency is better than I'm even giving credit for it. Giving it credit for it is that you can board wipe and then you can still make a play with 3 mana on something like if you have 6-7 lands, let's say, whereas normally we would pay 5 for the effect and then have 2 left over or something and not be able to cast anything. So this way we can go 3 and then still have 3, 4, whatever mana it is, and still make a play. So that's actually really good. So you know what, that does put it in the top 3.
Wait a minute.
Top 2 or 3 of the 5 mana board wipes, I'd say.
Right. And I think you just got my brain humming. We have at least 2 left over from a traditional 5 mana.
Right.
And we know that for an extra 1, for 3 extra white, we can get those return all the permanents that died this turn.
That's right.
So that actually pairs.
When you said I thought of something, I knew that's what you were thinking of. You always put those cards in, and this works perfectly with it.
I do. Okay, Doomscar. Maybe I need to get a Doomscar tattoo.
I'd love to see it. Just full back this rave.
Full back of this random card art that's like, who knows what this is?
It could be
nothing recognizable in there.
Like 6 or 7 giant lightsabers in a town. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on.
I don't even think you can make a tattoo with that glowy neon color.
I'd like to see that. Tattoo artists out there, there's your challenge. All right. Okay. What's next?
Next white card. Starnheim Unleashed. 2 white for a sorcery. But it's got Foretell as well. So the alternate Foretell cost is, after you've paid the 2, is XX white. Create a 4/4 white angel warrior creature token with flying and vigilance. That's Sarah Angel. If this spell was foretold, create X of those tokens instead. So we can put it away early in the game, and then when we need to, we can pop out, I don't know, 2 is very easy. Like 3 or 4 is not unheard of.
Yep. Agreed. Pretty straightforward and pretty good.
Pretty good.
Next is Cosmic Intervention. This is from the Commander deck, notably. Cosmic Intervention is 3 and a white for an instant that says, if a permanent you control would be put into a graveyard from the battlefield this turn, exile it instead, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So a bit of a rescue plan for one of your permanents if it's to be destroyed. 4 mana is kind of a lot for that, as Sean was just mentioning. We've got a couple effects that for 4 mana do this to everything that's going to die this turn. So that's something to think about. However, it also does have Foretell for 1 and a white. So if you foretell this on some earlier turn and then get this ability for 2, this is a nice thing to save a commander that's getting destroyed, or another key permanent from your board. I've had this exact thing happen where, like, my whole deck is built around this enchantment. I just hope they don't draw enchantment removal, which is like, we can pretty much count on that for, especially if a couple things get destroyed early in the game. But then it's nice to have a Cosmic Intervention there if we want it. It's almost like a little bit of a little counter spell for something you care about.
It adds up to 5 with Doomscar if they're both foretold.
There you go. There you go. 5 mana, kill everything but get your best thing back.
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
Also, the good thing is that you do get an ETB trigger from it, too. It's not just like a regenerate or an Insight Destructible or something like we're used to. Anyways.
Right.
Nice.
There's one more card I want to mention from the Commander deck specifically, and that's Stoic Farmer. 3 and a white for a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic Plains card and reveal it. And if an opponent controls more lands than you, put it onto the battlefield tapped. Otherwise, put it into your hand. Then shuffle your library. And it also foretells, so you can pay 2 up front and 2 later, or 4 at any point. Man, surely this will become a staple in most mono white or Boros decks. Like we're finally starting to get the white ramp that they promised us. Yeah,
so you could do this on, it's almost like, okay, you do this on, you foretell on turn 2.
Mm-hmm.
Then you play your 2 mana rock on turn 3, and then you can still foretell. If you hit your land drop for turn 3, then you can still do the foretell from Stoic Farmer and ramp again. So that's a nice little 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. That works.
Yeah, I mean, we love Core Cartographer just for tutoring up a Plains for 4 mana. And so now we get it into play, and we can foretell it and like do more with our turn later. So this is great.
Right on. I agreed. Cool stuff. Let's move into blue with Mystic Reflection. 1 and a blue for an instant. Choose target non-legendary creature. The next time one or more creatures or planeswalkers enters the battlefield this turn, they enter as copies of the chosen creature, and you can foretell for a single blue. So this is wild because there's 2 sides to this card. We can make it so that things our opponents are playing, are about to enter the battlefield, can be a copy of some garbage token that's on the battlefield. Or we can have it so that we're playing some crazy giant thing that when it enters, it makes a bunch of tokens, and then you can make it so that, or that's on the battlefield, and you play something that, plays a bunch of tokens, because then it comes in as a copy and it's making more tokens, like Avenger of Zendikar, and this is just bonkers, right? Something entering as Avenger of Zendikar puts an Avenger of Zendikar out, and then all those tokens that the Avenger would make also become Avengers of Zendikar. Right? Isn't that how that works?
Wait a minute. Does this be infinite Avengers of Zendikar?
No, it doesn't work that way. That's what I think. I think there was a lot of talk about that. So there's something that it stops it because it's just the next time. One or more creatures.
I see.
So it just does it for the first instance of the things happening, I think.
Right.
And then it doesn't keep like chaining like that. But there's
if
still
you time it right, all the plants come in at once.
Yeah, you have to exactly.
So you can make all the plants be
the
something cool. Okay.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
you can make all the plants be the first Avenger of Zendikar.
Yes, that's right.
And then just make, like a cubed plants cubed.
Yeah, you just get so many plants.
So many plants.
And there's a lot of creatures that work that way in a bunch of different colors, right? There's a bunch of like
cool.
There's even like there's obviously a bunch of white creatures that do that with like spirits and stuff, and then there's soldiers, and then there's a bunch of whatever. So it's a neat card. It's a neat card, and like I said, in a pinch, it can be a thing that's like, oh, you're playing your commander. Okay, well now it's actually just a soldier.
Neat.
Which is a cool way to like.
And then they have to somehow kill it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like trapped. So I think it's a powerful card.
I do too. I didn't see its potential till you revealed it to me. This one, it's pretty good. It's another Foretell card. Raven form, 2 and a blue, sorcery. Exile target artifact or creature. Its controller creates a 1/1 blue bird creature token with flying, and you can foretell it for a single blue. So at some point in the game, we're going to put it away for 2 colorless, and now we have a 1-mana sorcery that exiles a creature or an artifact. Blue gets a lot of these types of 1-mana effects, often at instant speed, but turning anything, exiling anything, almost anything. You get artifacts now. That's a new thing.
Yeah.
Also nabbing artifacts. Turning them to a bird is not that big a deal. And it's very cheap, and this is a strong card. It's probably a good veggie that's going in a ton of blue decks.
It's almost like I had to hate to put this in because like, can we like, I thought blue wasn't supposed to be able to affect the board. I thought it was supposed to be able to permanently remove creatures. Like I thought it.
Well, it's not permanently removed. It's a bird now.
Yeah, it turned it into a bird. Yeah, I get it. But it is like I can exile a very large, very good creature with this and turn it into 1/1 flyer. Like bad card in limited, sure. Not that. I mean, maybe it's a fine card in standard or whatever, but it's like totally fine to very good in commander.
Oh yeah.
You can do this to commanders. Who cares? Get a 1/1 bird. I don't care. You know what I mean? This card
do this to the Swiftfoot boots that's on a commander, so that now your other players can finally address it.
And it's exile.
Yeah,
it's exile.
See, this is where it's infuriating because other parts of the color pie, and I'm infuriated when people are like, the color pie says this color can't do that. It's like they've gone back on things. It's like, I know old cards do this, but we're reshaping the color pie. This is no longer that color as it is. It's like, we got Pongify once, so now we're just exiling creatures and turning them into 3/3s for the rest of our blue lives.
Even Pongify at least was destroy. And like, I know that this is kind of like it's like beating a dead horse. It's been said 1,000 times, but why couldn't this have been white? Like,
yeah.
That's a meme, man. Like, exile target, even artifact creature. I mean, giving them even a token is something that there's a white card. There's that white card that's basically Beast Within, right? That like kind of
the elephant one.
Yeah, the elephant one. So like we've even seen that in white now. And
then if you want to flavor it for white, you call it some sort of tax rebate, and then you give them a treasure token. Instead of the artifact. It's like, well, you owe me this creature, I have to exile it, but to pay you for it, we'll give you this treasure token. Path to Exile lets them put a land out. Like, how is that any different? Instead,
in this set, there is, I believe, a 3-mana instant that does the same thing as this. It exiles a creature, but instead of giving them a 1/1 blue bird or something else useless, it lets them put. I can't remember if it's a creature or permanent because it's bad. It's bad for commander. It's a creature or permanent into play from their hand. So
that's not a 3-mana spell, Andy. That's 2 mana.
Oh, that's 2 mana, and that's white. So like, it's just it's just like that's the version white gets, of course, the unplayable version, and then the almighty blue gets just another thing for mono blue decks to get where they actually can remove creatures permanently. I mean, I don't know, whatever.
Divine Gambit. They get to put any permanent card.
Yeah, don't run that card in Commander unless you like are trying to, give your opponents advantage. Of course, there's some decks that are going to love a card like Divine Gambit, actually, but yeah. Anyways, I just find it funny that they're still doing white so dirty. They're still dirty. Loving on blue and just doing poor old white so dirty. Anyways, it's more funny to me now. I'm not actually complaining. Like, I don't even really care. It's just kind of funny that it's like,
I know.
It's like, this is like sticking it in white's face. It's been like, you're garbage. And here's what I'm going to do to you.
White keeps coming back, though. White is just like, yeah, I know. I know, it's fine. It's okay.
And you know what? Don't get me wrong. They still make lots of good white cards. Like, especially for Commander. I actually love white in Commander. Don't believe the hype of white's terrible. They're maybe the best support color. They do everything. Anyways, let's move on.
Yeah. Okay. I think you're up.
Oh, me up. Okay. Reflections of Litiara. 4 blue for an enchantment. As Reflections of Litiara enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, you copy that spell. And just a reminder, because this is a fairly new ability, a copy of a permanent spell becomes a token. So just basically just how you would probably think it would work, right? So you put this on a wicked creature, and then whenever you cast a spell, that's the... you just have this out. You name the creature type, rather, sorry. And then whenever you cast that spell of that type, copy it. Sweet. This kind of works. This could work just for your commander, which is why I actually like it a lot, like outside of tribal decks as well. If you're having something where we're like doing something where we're sacrificing a commander. If you have a cool like sack ability on your commander, obviously the legendary rule is going to make it die right away. I think there's actually quite a few commanders that works fine with. Also, I like the old version of what is it? Orla? What was that guy?
I don't know.
Something Lesk, the Simic one that dies and proliferates. What's that guy's name again?
Rolesk?
I want to say Roll. Yeah, I was gonna say Orlesk, but yeah, right, it's Rolesk. So there you go. That works well with that commander, but also obviously any kind of tribal deck's gonna love this. So I think it's a neat little card though. I love seeing that ability, the copy of the permanent thing.
Yeah, it's a new angle on copying spells.
Yeah.
Let's move on to some black cards. We got quite a few of these. We got a lot of neat stuff. First up is another black board wipe. I'm always shocked at how few actual full board wipes in black that there are. There aren't so many.
Yeah.
Unlike white, which has a gajillion.
Yeah.
So this is Blood on the Snow. 4 black, snow sorcery. And we get a choice. We can destroy all creatures, or we can destroy all planeswalkers. Not bad. Then we return a creature or planeswalker card with converted mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of snow spent to cast this spell. Once again, just make all your things snow so that you're probably getting back a 5 or a 6 drop. And that ability happens after the first part. The card resolves in the order it's written. So first the things will get destroyed, then you can return something, presumably something that got destroyed, that is 4 or 5 or 6 mana.
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed that it has to do with snow because now I gotta do something weird to my lands, I guess. But
yeah,
this is if you get this working and you get all snow lands or whatever, this can be amazing. This can be a lot of reanimate spells are 5 mana alone, let alone also destroying everything else. So pretty sweet. Blood on the Snow seems quite powerful if you get those snow lands going. And like Sean said, there's actually surprisingly few, just especially affordable 6 mana black board wipes. Next we have Burning Rune Demon, 4 black for the Demon Berserker. It's a 6/6 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for exactly 2 cards not named Burning Rune Demon that have different names. If you do, reveal those cards. An opponent chooses one of them, put the chosen card into your hand and the other into your graveyard, then shuffle your library. Bit of a gifts ungiven style of thing here where one's going to go in the graveyard, one's going to go in your hand. You're going to build a deck where both of those things are fine to you, right? Like you're going to pick either 2 redundant abilities or something where I can reanimate the thing no matter what I'm doing. It's going to be wild. So.
Yeah.
Bring Ruin Demon, basically just a really good tutor because it tutors something to your graveyard and to your hand. So it's pretty amazing. Really good.
Very good.
And a Rune Scarred Demon is what this reminds me of, obviously, which is the 7-mana demon that just tutors something to your hand. So that's cool that they kept with the
Demons
rune
with
theme.
runes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I guess in a rune themed set there would have to be. I just had a brainstorm for an unset type of card. This reminds me of it. I want there to be a card that says, you may search your library for this. If you do, you may have an opponent choose. If they do, you may have this happened. If that does. Those little if you do's always are like, why do you need to say that?
It is weird, right?
Like, I know it makes the rules work. Like, without it, like, things can break. But it's just like, you may search for things. If you do.
If you do. It's very cheeky.
Yeah. Okay.
If you decide to
Next
do this,
card.
you can.
Next card is another mythic. Eradicator Valkyrie. 2 black. Angel Berserker. What a great creature type combo. 4/3. Flying, lifelink, hexproof from Planeswalkers.
Weird.
And here's another boast ability. Boast 1 and a black. Sack a creature. Each opponent sacks a creature or Planeswalker. Pretty useful. And very fair of a comparison from those edict type effects that just make everyone sack everything all the time. Is like, you can only do this once per attack. This creature attacks very well, so you can probably do that on multiple turns, but it's not going to be as crippling and unfun for the table as some of those, like, whatchamacallits, grave pact type of things.
Yeah, and the thing is with Eradicator Valkyrie, if you can attack with it safely and then do this ability, it kind of just like, it's like create your own Fleshbag Marauder type of thing. And anyone knows who's run Fleshbag Marauder in a deck, like, those cards are really good. So this time, though, you get to choose, like, you get to pick the thing you're sacrificing, which is obviously going to be good for you, and then you get to still have this ability on the battlefield to play over and over again every combat, which is really powerful.
You can attack with a team, and you can look how the blocks line up and be like, oh, I'm going to lose a couple good things. Okay, I'll do it now and just sack a thing I'm already going to lose. Or if they're chumping a bunch, like, you know what? I'll let you chump, and then after those are gone, now I will activate it when some of your chumpy guys are gone.
Yeah, neat little card.
It's
a mythic. Ugh.
And here's another one.
Oh, yeah. Haunting Voyage. 4 black, sorcery, mythic. Choose a creature type. Return up to 2 creature cards of that type from your graveyard to the battlefield. If this spell was foretold, return all creature cards of that type from your graveyard to the battlefield instead. And the foretell is actually more than the regular cost. It's 5 black. But, that's well worth it. 7 mana on a later turn in the game to basically bring everything back from your graveyard seems quite powerful. Again, tribal, tribal's coming into play here. And obviously all of these tribal cards are kind of only really work in tribal decks. But, there might be a deck somewhere where you can make this work even if it's not, but really the strength is getting your entire graveyard back, which is very good. Zombie deck specifically probably going to really love this card.
Here's another good zombie deck card. Rise of the Dread Marn. 2 and a black for an instant, and it foretells, and the foretell cost is just 1. So you're paying 3 in either 2 parts or all at once. Create X. 2/2 black zombie berserker creature tokens, where X is the number of non-token creatures that died this turn. That's pretty good. I mean, we saw Blood on the Snow cost 6, so if this is foretold, for that extra 1 black, I can also get a 2 dozen zombies out of the deal. Pretty good. And then having like foretelling for 1 black is so sneaky good because I can foretell this way early in the game and just make sure I always leave 1 black open. And if there's ever a board wipe, boom, I've got 100 zombies, right? Like, I'm exaggerating, of course, but like holding that 1 black up is not backbreaking to the point where you're just like, you know what? I'm good. I'm protected now. Board wipe away. I'll get my army back.
What's a Marn?
Short for Marnie.
Rise of the Dread Marnie.
Yeah, Marnie is a zombie lord who is just dreadful.
She's terrible. The Dread Marnie. Oh my god. She works at that bookstore. I never go in there. The Dread Marnie.
Dreadful.
Next is, so there's a whole cycle of runes, and they're kind of interesting, and they're really only, I think, like super interesting to equipment decks, but the one I wanted to point out of all of them was Rune of Mortality. It's 1 and a black. And it's actually a new card type. They're enchantments, aura, rune, so they are their own type, which is interesting. They all work like this. They enchant a permanent, and when they enter the battlefield, you draw a card, so they replace themselves, which is nice. Then, as long as the enchanted permanent is a creature, it has death touch. And as long as an enchanted permanent is an equipment, it has equipped creature has death touch. So obviously better to put it on the enchantment because we can move it around and stuff like that. This is just notable again because kind of like a new card type here, but also like this one specifically, Mortality, works, I think, very interestingly with a couple of other equipments that are going to be like, you can like deal damage with some of these equipment, like tapping the creatures and things like that. And I always know when we're making death touch based decks, this is an ability we would definitely want. I can't really speak for the other ones so much as far as like combos go with specific equipment or anything, but they're all worth looking at if you run an equipment deck in those colors, I would say. So take a peek.
I agree. The fact that they all draw a card, they replace themselves, means that you're kind of improving your equipment without a card disadvantage that way.
Yeah.
I do think it's probably because someone's thinking about it. I do want to clarify, it is a new subtype of an aura, but it is still an aura.
Yes.
It doesn't count as a whole new type for things like...
No, exactly. Yeah.
That would count card types.
You're right. It's a new subtype. It's not a new card type. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is a card in the set, for example, that says like get all rune cards from your deck or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. Like a curse.
Yeah, exactly.
This is... Oops.
Oh, yeah.
What? 1 second.
I don't know how do you spell Draugr?
D-R-A Necromancer. Let's see if that works. There we go. Draugr. Oh, it's just GR at the end. There's no U.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
Anyway, all these weird vowels. Okay, here's a snow creature that I mean, again, you're just going to want to turn all your swamps to snow, but I guess you don't have to. 3 and a black for a snow creature, zombie cleric, 4/4. If a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, exile that card with an ice counter on it instead. If I were to stop reading here, there's lots of those types of abilities. We can turn off graveyard decks. Creatures no longer die. They now exile instead. Yeah. Your opponents, yours still do. But here's I think what makes this especially interesting. It's also a 4/4 for 4. It's not that expensive. Mm-hmm. You may cast creature spells from among cards in exile your opponents control with ice counters on them. And you may spend mana from snow sources or mana of any color. So you're going to want to run all swamps or all snow basics so that you have access to all of your opponent's creatures. And I think a few decks, even if you did not get that, this would still be a good card. The fact that you also get access to a whole bunch of new creatures, I think this is a very strong card.
I agree. This is like, if you don't have the snowlands even, this is kind of how it used to work in Commander. Like when we would see cards like this, like we could only cast them if we had the right mana for it anyways. So, right. And we still ran lots of those types of cards in decks that like in those types of decks that we were running those cards in. So I agree. It's actually not that bad. You just have to find the opponent that has some mana in common with you, right? But obviously, yes, the snowman is just going to make this guy better. I love this card. I think this card's great. I am with you that it's almost good enough just to play from the first ability where we're stopping stuff from going in our opponent's graveyards from the battlefield. Because it's dies, right? Nice. Yeah. Okay, neat. Very good card. Yeah, like that one a lot. Another one here is Dream Devourer. It's a 1 in a black 0/3 demon cleric. It says each non-land card in your hand without foretell has foretell, and its foretell cost is equal to its mana cost reduced by 2. Also, it says whenever you foretell a card, Dream Devourer gets +2/+0 until end of turn. It's funny that this card's in black, though, because this is an ability that you just want in blue-white, because that's the foretell colors, and it's weird that they put it in black. But, I mean, there you go.
I can't figure out, like, is this, like... Obviously, being able to split my mana cost allows me to be more efficient with my mana, and that is a good thing. Mm-hmm. It is a net positive. But I guess what I can't figure out is, are you just foretelling your whole hand, and then once everything is foretold, then you're like, and now I'm going to be casting things for super cheap, 3 and 4 spells at a time? I honestly can't, like, if this ability was just a global effect, if we played a home game where we're like, rule 0, every card has foretell for 2 and it does this, right? Like everyone just has that fully the whole time. How would that anyway, it's something I can't I cannot wrap my head around. I don't know how this works. I need to play with this card to see how it works.
I think you would foretell a lot of your spells, probably, right?
Okay, but then you're not doing anything though. Like how
Oh,
long
I agree.
do you not
You're
do
basically
anything?
taking a turn off. So
A turn?
Well, yeah. Oh, I mean the one where we're foretelling like 3 things. Let's say.
Well, but that's when you have 6 mana, right?
Yeah.
But like on turn 2, foretell something. Now I've got 3 mana as access to. I'm going to foretell something else, and I don't have a 1, so there you go. Now I've got 4 mana. I'm going to foretell 2 things. like when do you actually start playing?
I think you definitely. Yeah, it depends on the cards. I mean, some of them you're not even going to get
You're not going to get a discount.
You're not going to get much of a discount. Yeah, some of the things, but yeah, I wonder. Yeah, exactly. How good is this card? Is it really good, or is it just whatever?
It makes 2 mana artifacts castable for 0 later.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I do know that by the rules, I did look into it. If Dream Devourer gets destroyed, foretold cards are still good. Like you can still cast them.
I assumed that just because like that was. Yeah, I feel like something in the text would be about that, but yeah. This
anyway,
interesting.
I'm just fascinated by it. I don't know. I'm just very interested. I would love to try a random plane chasey kind of thing. We all just have this just to see what happens.
That's a good. Yeah, I wonder if we played a whole game where that was just the rule, just to see how that worked.
If all it did was make everybody's deck run better and more efficiently and smoother, that's what we want, right?
Interesting. Yeah, I'm willing to try it out. All right, let's move on to red.
Okay.
We got a good, real big, huge, splashy red card here.
Yes. This is Goldspan Dragon. 3 red, 4/4 dragon, flying, haste. Whenever Goldspan Dragon attacks or becomes the target of a spell, create a treasure token. But that's not all. Treasure tokens you control have tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 2 mana of any one color. Spicy.
Yeah. I mean, there must be some crazy way to go infinite with this, right? Like,
oh, there certainly is. There certainly
has to be.
We're looking at what's her face. Who's the dwarf that makes treasures when you tap dwarves and tutors up dragons? Magda. So Magna can attack with a team as long as you have another get an extra combat for mana thing. All the treasure that you make with Magna, Goldspan turns that effect into taking an extra turn.
This is not a cheap card, by the way. This one is getting up there in price. I just feel like there's something that's just absolutely bonkers with this card. There must be. There just simply must be. I can't put my finger on it just yet, but that is good.
When it becomes the target of a spell, does not say that your opponent's control. So I can.
That's right.
If I can do a give it +1/+0 and haste for 1 plus draw a card, I've netted positive mana and drawn a card off of that.
Right.
Because I get 2 mana back from the treasure token for the 1 I spent and drew a card.
Are there any cards that are can we do, listen, there's tons of stuff. I love it. Buy back some stuff, get it back into my hand, return a bunch of, all that kind of thing. Sack an artifact, return something to my hand. It's got to be a bunch of stuff like that. So this card is absolutely wild.
Yeah.
But I love it though. I love it. It's the kind of wild and splashy stuff I like to see.
Yes.
Yeah, if this can enable a bunch of weird combos, I think that's great. Awesome.
Enable away.
Next is Quakebringer, 3 red. Another mythic here. Giant Berserker, 5/4. Your opponents, they can't gain life. At the beginning of your upkeep, Quakebringer deals 2 damage to each opponent. This ability triggers only if Quakebringer is on the battlefield or if Quakebringer is in your graveyard and you control a giant. Foretell for 2 red. Just interesting. It's got the what's that card, Sean?
I don't know.
Cyclo. so the worst it does. It's the cube staple.
Flame cyclonic flame.
It's something where it deals damage and you can't gain life.
Vortex,
sulfuric vortex.
Yes,
there
we
it
got
is.
there.
Yeah, we got there together. Sulfuric vortex on a creature. Notably from the graveyard, it's interesting. Like this guy could just die. You don't care. But if you play any more giants from your giant deck, all of a sudden it's got this ability. So it kind of turns a giant deck you might have into a more aggressive version of it, and that's kind of interesting. Yeah. It can kind of give a new slant on an old deck. That's cool.
I think it's really neat to see what Sweetums has been up to.
Yeah,
it's great to see.
He's glowing a lot more.
Yeah,
right? He's got a huge sword.
Yeah, he's done cleaning up the Muppet Theater.
Yeah, was that what Sweetums did? He was the janitor.
I remember him cleaning up from time to time. I don't know.
He always just showed up in the back and like scared the host. That was always the thing that I always remember that he would do.
Yeah.
Love Sweetums. Good to see him back.
Next up is Tybalt's Trickery. If you're following Standard, you're aware of the shenanigans this is up to. 1 in a red for an instant, counter target spell. Cool.
What?
Counter spell in red. Red
Yeah,
doesn't
right?
get that too often. Next, you choose 1, 2, or 3 at random. Its controller, that is to say the spell you countered that spell's controller, mills that many cards, 1, 2, or 3 at random, then exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile an online card with a different name than the countered spell. Obviously, that's everything in Commander. They may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then they put the exiled cards on the bottom of their library in a random order. Weird.
So
do you ever want to do this? Like, obviously, if your opponent plays a game-winning spell, this is better than nothing. Mm-hmm. But you're giving them something potentially very good for free.
Yeah.
Do you do it to yourself? It's a lot of resources to do potentially nothing. Or very little.
Radiohead would say every time you do it to yourself. You do. Yeah.
And that's what really hurts.
Yeah, exactly. Is when you do it to yourself. Countering your own spell, that's going to hurt. I think I like currently am very tangentially following Standard. I just see people tweet about what's happening in Standard now and again.
Yeah.
So I think what's happening there is that people are targeting themselves and getting free big things. Right?
Here's the move. You fill your deck with all the 0 creatures, like the X Serpent.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Stone Coil Serpent. Yeah.
Stone Coil. On turn 2, you cast it for 0. While it's on the stack, you Tybalt's Trickery it, and you hope to hit either Ugin or Genesis Ultimatum or Omniscience, and then you cast the Ugin that's in your hand for free or the Genesis Ultimatum in your hand for free, and you just, on turn 2, you can have an Ugin, a couple of like an Ulamog, and like a couple of crazy, the game just explodes into chaos in one on turn 2.
That's going to be tough to do, obviously, in Commander.
That's the thing. You can't do it the same way. You can't just run zeros and huge things.
So I think when it comes to Commander, we're going to be relying on, I think, what this card was like more actually designed for, which is that gamble of countering something that seems really good right now, but like, what are they going to have on top of their deck, kind of thing. So, and I think, if you're in mono red or red white or something, I mean, I think it's maybe okay, because like, think about it. There's a lot of cards in blue even that like you counter a spell and they draw a card, or you counter a spell and they get to put a creature into play or something like that. This is similar. I mean, I agree it's worse than most of those spells, but
remember.
I agree with what you said though. If it's a game-winning play, this is where you want to have that.
Well, and maybe there's room for this in that Togo deck where you want to counter your spells because you get on-cast triggers.
Right.
So I'm going to get my on-cast trigger, and then I'm going to counter it with this and get something else cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I always say this, like, I think the best use of counter spells for the most part is to stop board wipes.
Right.
If you're ahead, if you're doing well, you want to stop a board wipe. Well, Tybalt's Trickery does that. Who cares if it adds a creature to their board? They're trying to board wipe right now. They can't be in that good of a position. So in just for that alone, it's kind of worth it. Protects your commander in that way. That's interesting.
I love a fun little bit of chaos.
Me too. I think it's good. Let's take a look at some green cards now. Okay. Sika's Chariot, 3 and a green for a 4/4. It's a legendary artifact. It's a vehicle. When it enters, you get two green cat creature tokens. And whenever it attacks, you create a token that's a copy of target token you control. So it basically populates. And you crew it for 4.
Look at that little kitty driving a chariot.
I know. I love that. Like Magic always has this thing where they need to take regular animals and try to make them look more magical, you know, like they have that thing. So Magic's thing for cats is just to make them look like Maine Coons. Or like slightly
so
more
fluffy.
lynx. Yeah, make them more lynx like. And these 2 kitties are just like, they just have very nice combed out fur, looking very sharp.
But the one that's driving the chariot reminds me of the meme of the cat at the dinner
Yes, at the
table because
table,
he's just poking over.
You know what's crazy? Okay, this is a real besides the point. That cat, my in-laws, Sarah's parents, they know the owners of that cat. That cat lives in Ottawa. Yeah.
That is a Canadian cat?
It's a Canadian cat. Yeah.
Nice.
Isn't that wild? This is in the running for cutest card. It's right up there with a card we're not going to talk about, but it's there's a little pup. There's like a brave pup or something like that, but there's a little puppy howling. And it's like, ooh, is it the kitties or the puppy? You don't know.
Now let's talk about a big animal. This is Battle Mammoth. 3 green for an elephant. It's a 6/5 with trample. Whenever a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. And it has foretell for 2 green. So the net cost is 1 additional if you end up foretelling it. But that's a strong thing. I couldn't find... I know that there's that other Runic Armasaur that whenever your opponent's activate abilities, you get to draw extra cards. That one sometimes pays off depending on the deck. And Battle Mammoth is a similar thing. Like in your meta, maybe people are targeting your stuff a lot. But if they're just board wiping everything over and over, this won't do much.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually not wild about this. It's a big fat creature, but unless someone targets it, it's just a 6/5 trample, which is not bad, obviously. And we can foretell it, of course, too. But yeah, I don't know. Next, we have Horizon Seeker. This is another Boast creature, actually.
Yeah.
2 and a green for the 3/2. This has Boast, 1 and a green. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. I don't know. You know, it's there's a lot of decks, especially nowadays, that want, because there's so many like drop a land for free into play abilities that we're seeing out there. So actually, Horizon Seeker and cards that just put lands in your hand are actually, I think, getting a lot better. So here we have one that can do it repeatedly if you can somehow get the attack through with it living, and it can be worth it.
Yeah, and then if I have something like, I'm just gonna make the same point, but like your opponents must deal with this, because like just being able to do this over and over and over to just keep drawing cards, this card could draw you 5 cards, all lands, over the course of the game. That's pretty good.
It's not hard to deal with. It's just a 3/2, but I'm sure you'll have some way to protect it if this is something you really want to do.
So okay, here's a card we're bringing up because we want to clear up that nobody misunderstands this card. This is In Search of Greatness. Green enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may cast a permanent spell from your hand with converted mana cost equal to 1 plus the highest converted mana cost among other permanents you control without paying its mana cost. If you don't, scry 1. It doesn't mean what you might first think it means is that like, pick something on your battlefield and put something out for free that's 1 more than it. You only get to go up from your largest CMC thing. So a lot of times you won't have anything in your hand that works for it, especially once you're at 6. Then like you got to have exactly a 7. And if you don't have exactly a 7, all this does is scry 1. So now we're talking about, is it worth just having 2 mana scry 1 every turn? Again, I have to say, we've got Lifecrafter's Bestiary in green, which is an additional 1, and it's not green, it's just 3 colorless, that also scries every turn, but we can also draw extra cards by paying additional green. And I think pound for pound, that's always going to outshine this. This is a confusing one for me.
I think this card I think it's very important to point out what you're pointing out, because I know when I first read it, I was just like, sweet, free cards every turn. It's like, no. It's not. It's like you're lucky, I think, if you can do this 2 turns in a row. But things die, and depending on what you're doing, I think there are some decks that are going to be able to take some pretty serious advantage of this card, because cheating mana cost, paying something for free, even if it is just once a turn, is still a powerful ability. Again, you're going to want to build around this ability, I think, or at the very least have a lot of card draw to support this, right? Like this kind of might as well be a blue-green card because you're going to want to have a bunch of draw if you want to do this every turn. That's kind of, and that's where the scry one does come in handy, I suppose, right? If we can't do it, we're at least scrying one. I agree. If you don't put this card in your deck to scry one, just that's not worth a card really. But if you can engineer it where we're looking to do this, every turn or every other turn or something like that, or we can maybe get some advantage where we can, I don't know, bounce something to our hand and replay it every turn. That's interesting, right? Again, blue-green card more than anything else. I think this card still is it has a high upside. I agree, though, that if you're thinking of just putting this card in a deck and getting free stuff out of it, it's probably not going to work out that well for you. But building around it or building with certain synergies in mind, I think this card can be very powerful.
Okay.
All right. But you know what? Even the bouncing thing is risky because if you play something that's higher mana cost than it, you're not going to get it for free. You have to be very careful about what you do with this card.
I know. Wouldn't it suck if you like if you put a 3-drop out after and you're like, well, I don't have a 4-drop, so this does nothing.
Yeah.
And then you manage to have ramp, so you play your 5-drop and then you draw a 4-drop. It's like, well, now I don't have a 6. Like it's like it's so like you can't run a deck full of 5-drops to make sure you hit a 5-drop.
Yeah, and it's like this work you'd think is like, does this work really well with pod? Like, can I birthing pod cool stuff and have this work with it? And it's kind of like, well,
all pod effects are at sorcery speed, so this happens in your upkeep. But
what I mean is like, can I have this be part of the ladder of climbing to get to something really big? But like, there's so much stuff that has to go right. You have to have it in your hand. The 8 mana card you want to play to pod into something from a 6 to 7. Anyways.
Yeah,
that's the limits. But like I said, I think if you're building specifically around it, it can be powerful. Otherwise, yeah.
Do not get fooled by the upside, by the ceiling of that card.
Don't get fooled again. Yeah. The Who, In Search of Greatness. Well, we found it. The Who, they're great.
The Who. Okay.
What's next?
This next one's interesting.
Yeah, this is a bit of a discussion here as well. Okay. One and a green for the Masked Vandal. It's a 1 and a white shapeshifter changeling. When it ETBs, you can exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, exile target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. I'll get this out of the way right away. This is one of the ones I saw on Twitter. Also, people were like, why isn't this card white? That doesn't bother me so much with this one. It's whatever. But here's the thing. Is Reclamation Sage, like, are we just done with that card now? This thing costs 2 and it exiles.
So Reclamation Sage works while everyone's developing.
Yes.
So your opponent puts down a Sol Ring, you're at 3, you can Rec Sage that Sol Ring. You can't Masked Vandal it because it's unlikely you already have a creature in your graveyard. Mm-hmm. If your deck's ton to graveyard, this is not a discussion. It's way easier.
Yeah.
But I do think, and exile's better than destroy.
Yeah.
So that's another thing it has on it.
And like,
I think I'm upgrading Reclamation Sage to this.
How often are you Rec Saging on turn 3? Not very often, right? Anyways,
nah.
Like, I know what you just said is actually not a bad turn. Like, do it to kill someone's Soul Ring. Yeah, sure. But you're also taking off that development time yourself. I think more often than not, people are still hanging on to that Rec Sage for something more impactful most of the time. And I think if you're doing that, if you find yourself doing that most of the time, which I think you will, Mass Vandal's probably better because there's gonna be
you can still blink it. It still works off of blinks as long as you've got creatures in the graveyard.
It's still an elf.
Yeah, it's still an elf.
It's still an elf. It's all everything, but it's also everything else. So it's like the one downside is can we get that creature into the graveyard? And I don't think that's just free. I will say that. I do not think that is just free. There are times when I've been playing cards like this that care about something in the graveyard, and I'll be like turn 5 or 6, and I still don't have anything in there, and that's a real downside. All right.
People are exiling graveyards.
Good card, though. Very good card. Moving on.
Moving on to Multicolour. This is our last section of cards before we hit. So we'll just list some cool reprints and then talk about the commanders. First Multicolour card is an enchantment. It's a saga. Tons of sagas came back. This is Binding the Old Gods. 2 black, green. First chapter, destroy target non-land permanent an opponent controls. So right on its face, you're getting a 4-mana sorcery, destroy a non-land permanent. That ain't nothing. That's pretty good. But it's a saga, so you get more after that. Turn 2, or chapter 2, on your next draw step, you get to search your library for a forest Doesn't say basic forest, any forest. Put it into the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. The third saga is creatures you control gain death touch until end of turn. So this is considerable. You could consider running this just for the first chapter, and that's the time you want it. The most important one is first. I think this is a very nice budget include if you're Golgari looking for more stuff like this.
Agreed. The other stuff is basically bonus, and that first ability is totally fine. Sorcery speed, 4 mana, destroy something. Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'm in. Next, it's another saga. It's Forging the Tyrite Sword. 1 red, white. It's the Boros one? What? Yes. On turns 1 and 2, it says create a treasure token. So like bit of sort of temporary ramp here. And then the third chapter is search your library for a card named Halvar, God of Battle, or an equipment card. Reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle your library. We like this a lot because it's a little temporary ramp in Boros, which is tough to come by, even at temporary. Although now that treasures are around, Boros is not hurting so badly for ramp anymore. Let's be honest there. Treasures are a real thing now, especially there's a lot of cards that do it. Anyways, but we do like that ability. I think even outside of an equipment deck, you're going to have boots, greaves, and maybe 1 or 2 other random equipment in your deck sometimes, or maybe Sunforger, even just 1 other random one. I think that's like to tutor that card. It's obviously not like essential, but this can also be a source of protecting your commander if you want to do that, which is nice.
This is a very strong card in Boros.
Yeah.
We've also got the Trickster God's Heist. 2 blue, black. Chapter 1. You may exchange control of 2 target creatures. Ooh. People hate this. Chapter 2, you may exchange control of 2 target non-basic, non-creature permanents that share a card type. This in Commander is going to be very powerful.
Trade your treasure for their like Panharmonicon or something.
Yeah. But you can also trade Trickster God's Heist for their Wicked Enchantment. And then Chapter 3 is target player loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. I don't care if I give that to my opponents. Yeah. I really don't care if I get that. That's not the part. So I'm planning on stealing your best creature, and I'm planning on giving you this for your best enchantment.
Good call. Yeah, that's good. That's a good thing. And then it dies and goes to your graveyard where you're the one who's going to be able to recurve or something, right? That's
wild. Or if I bounce it to its owner's hand, that's going to be my hand.
That's awesome. That's very good. There's a whole cycle of these. There's rares and uncommons. There's a bunch that are there's even more that are still like some are like a little more narrow for Commander, and some are just not really Commander cards. But take a look at them though, because they're cool. Yes. This next one is an Azorius card, and it is also from the Commander decks. It's an interesting one. Ethereal Valkyrie, 4 white blue. It's a Spirit Angel. It's a 4/4 with flying, and it says whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card, then exile a card from your hand face down. It becomes Foretold. Its Foretold cost is its mana cost reduced by 2. So this is better, obviously, for the blue-white deck where we want to be doing this more. It's from that Commander deck that wants to be doing it a bunch. But this is interesting because we don't have to pay anything for it. We just get to foretell something for free. So that's good.
I think it's especially good that we draw first and then we foretell something from our hand. We don't have to foretell the card we just drew, which may not be good to foretell. That's a very strong ability.
Yeah, can we foretell lands? No, because it's cast.
Yeah, I mean you can foretell it.
Yes, but then you just won't be able to get it out.
Nothing.
Yeah, right. Okay, good to know.
Let's talk about Immersturm Predator. 2 black, red, vampire dragon, 3/3 flying. When it becomes tapped, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard and put a +1/+1 counter on the predator. Sack another creature. Immersturm Predator gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. I mean, it's a free sack outlet, and it's a lot like Yahenni in that you can give it indestructible. It taps itself a bunch, but you can also like sack a creature to tap it to exile a card from a graveyard. So you can also nab things out of graveyards at instant speed with a sack in order to like prevent people from reanimating things. I think anytime something lets you sack for free, I'm interested.
Yeah, it's notable for sure. And this guy just turns into a giant beater as well, which is not to be ignored.
Yeah,
and it's like 2 very popular tribes too.
It's true.
Like you're putting
Vampire
this
Dragon.
Like, I'm glad you included this because the way it is like I put a bunch of cards together, then Sean went through it and was like, hey, here's some that you missed, and here's some that we don't need to talk about, blah, blah, blah. Sean included Immersturm Dragon, and the more I look at it, the more I'm like, how did I miss this? It's free sack. It gets big. It's a vampire and a dragon. Like, you're going to run this in vampire decks that don't care anything about dragons, and vice versa. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Kardur's Vicious Return. Here's one of those other sagas I was talking about. 2 black, red. For the enchantment saga. Chapter 1. You may sacrifice a creature. When you do, it deals 3 damage to any target. Second chapter is each player discards a card. And the third chapter is return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a +1/+1 counter on it. It gains haste until your next turn. Note that's I think what you want it for.
Yeah.
The other stuff is just okay.
I'm drawn to this too. Like the first chapter kind of stinks. But the way it goes 2-3, like each player discards a card. So my opponents are discarding a card. I'm also discarding a card. But I'm probably going to discard something awesome to reanimate because on my next draw step, I'm going to reanimate maybe the thing I discarded. Or maybe it's just something I don't care about. Maybe I know what's already in there. But it gives it haste. And it doesn't like exile at end of turn. It just like pops back in. It's got haste and it's around until someone deals with it. Like that line of play can lead to some very powerful turns, I think.
I'm mostly excited for the number of new sagas we have from this set.
Yeah.
2-color sagas. Like obviously there's a 5-color saga deck that either already existed and got majorly bolstered or is now a real and true thing. And I think is going to be very interesting and fun to play. So, and all these cards are going to go in it and this one's no exception. And yeah, I think it's neat. I love it. Love to see it. So now we're at the point where, do you want to do these two? No, let's do these 2 Planeswalkers first, and then we'll do the reprints.
Sure.
Okay. So yeah, go ahead and read this one.
Okay. A new Planeswalker from the packs, Kaya the Inexorable. 3 white, black for a 5 loyalty Kaya Planeswalker. +1. Put a ghost form counter on up to 1 target non-token creature. It gains when this creature dies or is put into exile. Return it to its owner's hand and create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. Excellent. We're going to get a creature back to our hand no matter what happens to it. And I guess not if it gets tapped permanently.
I bet you this ability was at some point Kaya's ghost form, the card. And they were like, wait, that's way too powerful. So instead of just returning it to the battlefield, we'll make it go to a hand and give you a spirit, right? Like it had to be that.
Yeah. It turns into a spirit. I do like that.
Yeah.
She's got a -3 exile target non-land permanent. It exiles and it hits everything but lands. That's excellent, even if you don't get to do anything else with her. But the -7, Planeswalkers are always like this. You go up 2, then you ultimate, right? Like they're always kind of like they start somewhere, and if you go up, the next turn you're at ultimate range. That's very common. Kaya's no exception. -7, you get an emblem with. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may cast a legendary spell from your hand, from your graveyard, or from among cards you own in exile without paying its mana cost. So that's Kaya herself. If you -7 her, she goes to your graveyard and she can come back without paying her mana cost. Or now you're going to let your commander die and just never go back to the command zone because wherever it goes, you can bring it back without paying its mana cost, including any other legendaries that incidentally end up in your deck. Decks are being filled with more and more legendaries accidentally. I know this is an ultimate. I know that almost never happens. But if you're Abzan and you have Vorinclex, you can ultimate her right away. So who cares?
Wow. Yeah, this is a spicy card.
The first 2 are excellent.
Yeah.
And the ultimate, which we probably will never get to, is also excellent. That's not news, but
yeah, this just the +1 to just protect a creature is pretty nice. I mean, it's tough because they're going to attack Kaya. Like they're going to attack Kaya at all costs. So obviously that's the downside.
The creature you block with comes back to your hand.
Yeah.
And you get to, like, if it's a ravenous chupacabra, it's like, can they afford to do that?
Yeah, like what's the downside? Like the major downside here is if you don't have any creatures, but like don't play a Planeswalker if you don't have any creatures.
Yeah,
like you're not doing that anyway, so it's fine. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, that's true. She protects you against 2 single creatures, mind you, attacking you. So very late in the game, it's just a good. Hey, very late in the game, it's just a fine removal spell that exiles a non-land permanent, which is still pretty good. Yeah, Kaya's pretty good. All right, all right. So the other planeswalker we have here is Nico Eris, X white blue blue. Legendary planeswalker Nico. When Nico enters the battlefield, create X shard tokens. Uh-oh. Couple of shards. They're enchantments with pay 2, generic, sacrifice this enchantment, scry 1, then draw a card. Okay. And
super clues.
yeah. So then we got +1. Up to 1 target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. Whenever this creature deals damage this turn, return it to its owner's hand. Okay. -1. Nico deals 2 damage to target tapped creature for each card you've drawn this turn. And then -1 is another -1 is create a shard token. So no traditional ultimate here. We have a +1 and 2 -1s. Doesn't make it any less intimidating, I don't think. I think that because this is such an effective and really neat form of card advantage, like and has the ability to kill stuff too. I think this is a pretty cool planeswalker, but I do think it's 3 loyalty. Like, you got to be able to protect this one, and this is one that doesn't automatically protect you.
I also think it's important to point out that the tokens Nico is creating are enchantments. So if you beef up that first X in a Constellation deck, you can hit Constellation like 5 or 6 times off the first one.
Good.
Create a shard right away and get 1 more enchantment Constellation trigger. I don't mind that.
And if you have like one of the enchantresses that's drawing you cards when they enter,
ooh,
although a lot of those are cast. I don't know how many of them are ETBs actually.
Well,
but I think most of them are cast. At any rate, if for some reason you could make that happen, yeah, Nico then being able to just kill something big would be very good.
Yeah, Setessan Champion and Eidolon of Blossoms are both
ETBs?
Enter the battlefield enchantment draws.
Wowzers. Yeah, okay, so that's pretty nice. So yeah, in an enchantment deck, this looks very strong. It is a decent form of card advantage, although I don't know if you want to mess around with that as like an expensive card, and be a planeswalker that can a little more easily be killed than anything else. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like blue-white decks draw cards no problem.
Yeah, exactly.
If this is just a very complicated draw spell.
Yeah, not great for that. But a neat card nonetheless. And I think Magic's first like non-binary planeswalker / character type thing. So cool little thing there. I think
that's super cool. I've not read the lore yet.
Yeah, I saw that like right away when it was spoiled. So that's cool.
Way to go.
All right. So next we have a couple of reprints that we just wanted to mention, just to tell you what is reprinted. We're not going to like discuss them really, because look, they're cards we know, we play with, we have in our decks already, and now they're just kind of more available than before. What do you want to do? How do you want to do this?
Alternating.
Okay, let's do it. First we have Sun Titan. Oh, okay. We do not have the images, so
no,
let's go to this. First is Sun Titan. We love this card. Great. See it
Ghostly
reprinted?
Prison.
Good.
Wizard's Thanks.
Curse of the Swine. Wizard's Thanks.
Windfall. Wizard's Thanks.
Beast Whisperer. Wizard's Thanks.
Farhaven Elf. Wizard's Thanks.
Reclamation Sage. Mentioned it earlier. Wizard's Thanks.
Casualties of War. Wizard's Thanks.
Wizard's Thanks. Mist Meadow Witch. One of my favorites. Wizard's Thanks.
You know what? Arcane Signet. Wizards thanks for making that a staple forever.
And thanks for reprinting it into the ground, Wizards thanks. Here's what we used to play before Arcane Signet was only like $1. Burnished Heart, Wizards thanks.
Wizards thanks for keeping that cheap, because that was creeping up too. Commander Sphere, once again, Wizards thanks.
And Marble Diamond, recently from Commander Legends, but also Wizards thanks.
Yeah, Sky Diamond, same deal.
Same deal. So yeah, some cool reprints there. Nothing majorly bringing down any very high prices or anything like that, but we're always happy to see, staples of the format be reprinted.
I'm so happy to see Commander decks full of useful cards, not full of a ton of like super narrow, janky, overpriced. Like, great, thank you, Wizards. Thanks, keep them coming.
Yeah. Agreed. So there you go. That's it, man. There's a lot of stuff in this set. A lot of text. Like this is like the same number of cards I feel like we normally read in a set review, but I feel like it's like 40 minutes longer because of all the extra text we had to read.
Yeah, and heavy legends this time around.
Heavy legends, yeah. A lot of legends. A lot of text, a lot of legends. A lot of tribal stuff. More even, I went, like I said, like building this list, building these show notes, like I looked at all these cards, but there's even more tribal than I realized, really. There's a lot. But it's all pretty good stuff, at least. Like it's all I think we're gonna be updating a lot of decks with this set, as opposed to brewing a lot of new stuff. Interestingly enough.
I haven't looked at the calendar, but I assume a new set is coming out in 3 weeks. So expect some spoilers tomorrow, probably. I don't know. That's what it feels like these days.
Yeah, expect another set review from us in 2 weeks' time. It'll be great. Well, thanks for sticking with us if you made it till the end. These are long ones, but we had a couple laughs along the way. The true set review was the laughs along the way, I think.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's it. Yeah, we're gonna say goodbye, and next week we'll be back with new deck techs and new more fun laughs and jokes and all that kind of stuff.
You know it.
All right, we'll see you guys then. Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you love what we're doing, consider supporting the show by going to patreon.com/commandersbrew.
And if you want to get any of the cards from our deck list, go to our TCG Player affiliate link below.
That helps us out too, and for a free way to help us out, consider sharing the show with some friends. Like and subscribe, add a comment or two.
See you later.
Bye.